Recently, a game genre that has been around for a long time has just now become popular among young people. The game Eager World, released 10 years ago. It was originally a dating simulator aimed at a female audience, but in the end, the number of male players was much higher. The special thing about this game lies in its character system. It's so rich that it allows players to role-play as many characters, from easy ones with high abilities to difficult ones who are completely useless and untalented. And yet, among them was one trash character, famous for its high difficulty and terrible stats. A certain fanatic who specialized in playing this character was Beck Eon for 15 years straight. At that moment, the real-world Beck Eon was cracking his knuckles, his voice ringing out, full of excitement. "Shall we begin?" He grinned with delight as he looked at his computer screen. His slender fingers typed with overwhelming confidence. He narrated, "And that is me, the player Beck Eon." That evening, the setting sun bathed the entire neighborhood in a golden glow. The space grew quiet. In his room, Beck Eon lifted a glass of water to drink, his sharp eyes noticing something on his computer, a flood of comments. Rude comments from other players flooded his screen. "What the hell is this buggy trash game? I can't log in." Seeing this, Beck Eon mused, "Oh, a few new posts on the forum? Is there a new update or something?" And just like that, more and more panicked comments appeared. "This damn game, where did this giant dinosaur ass fly in from? It just appeared out of nowhere and wiped all my game data. What the hell is a black demon dragon? It says my character is dead and I can't log in anymore. What the hell is going on? My character got deleted." A calm Beck Eon glanced at the posts, his eyes showing clear surprise as he said to himself, "A final boss in a dating simulator game? I thought the game was supposed to end when you successfully pair up with another character." Just then, another post from someone appeared on the screen. This one caught his attention the most. "Everyone, this boss is unbeatable on all fronts. This trashy black demon dragon has 99% automatic magic resistance with no cooldown. It just keeps hammering me with some kind of magic absorption and magic teleport ability. How the hell am I supposed to kill this thing? This has to be a bug." Right after reading it, he shouted in alarm, "Wait! This guy is a famous ranker!" Instead of feeling worried, he felt excited. He put down his glass and said with suspicion, "A final boss, huh?" He stared intently at the computer, propping his chin on his hand in thought for a moment before saying, "It's absurd to have a monster with a magic-nullifying ultimate move in a world of magic. Is it really a bug?" Everyone was in an uproar because their characters were being instantly wiped out. On the computer screen, a menacing dragon appeared, forcing him to believe the comments. He sighed. I guess so. That was it. The final boss with immeasurable power. The 13th demon dragon of the Dark Night had appeared. Beck Eon's hands moved ceaselessly over the keyboard and mouse. He said, "So the story is, the deeper you get into Egger World, there's a cult called the Black Demon Cult. Their goal is to help another world called the Human Gate take over this one. And when they finally achieved their goal, the Black Demon Dragon appeared." Beck Eon rubbed his chin, his eyes still fixed on the game interface, doubtful. "The Human Gate has already conquered 90% of the territory. I only care about PvP, though. I haven't paid much attention to the storyline, but the whole story's been thrown into chaos. Will this be okay?" His expression grew more and more pensive. "It's not like I can't avoid fighting it. Maybe I should give it a try." His arm moved slightly as he searched for all the information on it. A notification immediately popped up on the screen. "You will engage in battle with the Black Demon Dragon." Without hesitation, he clicked yes. The character Beck Eon pursed his lips, his expression serious, his finger clicking the mouse repeatedly. "I'm going to unleash the special moves I've been honing for the past 15 years. The character Beck Eon appeared on the screen like a powerful warrior with a sharp sword of light. Facing him was the Black Demon Dragon, a massive black dragon. Its entire body was covered in sharp scales, and its eyes glowed with a mystical light, exuding an aura of majesty and terror. The atmosphere immediately became tense. The battle began. He immersed himself in the game, looking at the Black Demon Dragon with cold eyes. "If I were to introduce my character, Beck Eon," he began, as he and the in-game character Beck Eon seemed to merge into one. He continued, "He's the only character in the game who can't use magic, despite the fact that Everyone can use magic in this game. That's why even the most experienced players don't choose to play as him with this scrawny body. All those years of experience have confirmed that he's simply worse than a side character. He sighed and continued. Of course he can use a little magic. Well, just one spell. Suddenly, the black demon dragon opened its huge mouth and gathered a bizarre energy. In a flash, it unleashed an extremely powerful blast of magic, aiming to send him to the next world in an instant. Beck Eon hadn't anticipated this at all. His eyes widened in shock. But then, he flashed a confident smile, ready to face the black demon dragon head-on. Beck Eon immediately leaped up with his sword in hand. He slashed across the dragon's neck with ease. He described it, saying, he can use the magic spell Flash. That's the one move he can pull off. He quickly landed on the ground but remained on guard for a situation like this. Beck Eon's expression quickly turned sour, but it seemed his flash was ineffective this time. As the character Beck Eon, he was currently calculating that it allowed him to teleport randomly within a range of 3 to 10 meters. Very quickly, with 15 years of gaming experience, he had drawn a profound conclusion for his character. The direction he flashed would be random, so if he couldn't control the exact direction, he'd die instantly due to the speed and its after effects. That forced him to think with constant seriousness. On top of that, the cooldown time and the mana cost were ridiculous. After using this skill, you'd also be penalized with a 2-second immobility debuff so anyone could learn it. But most people did not use it. Beck Eon, confident in his in-game character, said, however, for a veteran player like him, Beck Eon had mastered this skill. He could control the direction, as well as the distance. He could also neutralize the penalty. The features gradually became clearer. Character. Beck Eon, signature skill. Flash status. Mana deficiency. He read these stats, frowning as he thought further. It doesn't use up all the mana because he doesn't even have mana data. Unlike other magic, Flash is just a movement ability, nothing more, nothing less. Beck Eon, in an excited mood, continuously pressed the keys, thinking, but I'm addicted to playing this character, because everything depends on my skill. While continuously controlling the character Beck Eon to leap high and deliver a critical strike to the Black Dragon, he thought. That's why for the past 15 years, I've played the only character in the game that can't use combat magic. The Black Demon Dragon didn't back down either, continuing to spew its power toward Beck Eon. He wasn't afraid at all, immediately raising his sword to block its power. A long and intense battle dragged on. Finally, after a while of fighting, thanks to his persistence and skill honed over 15 years, the dragon was defeated at the hands of the character Beck Eon. He stood tall, looking at his achievement, motionless on the ground. Then, suddenly, a notification appeared. You have defeated the final boss, the Black Knight's 13th moon. In the real world, Beck Eon sat in front of the screen with a surprised expression, unable to believe his eyes, exclaiming, "What? Did I really kill it?" He seemed unable to believe what was happening before his eyes, doubting himself. I know I was basically equipped from head to toe with ancient-grade items already, but he's still a trash character. Despite the surprise, his fingers were still flying across the keyboard. Well, whatever. With this one-of-a-kind achievement in 15 years, he immediately came up with an idea and said, I'm going to show off to the community that I killed the Black Demon Dragon. The joy didn't last long. Right after Beck Eon clicked, continuous stream of identical crimson-red notifications appeared. Because the wrong ending has occurred, 90% of the world of Eager is now destroyed. Seeing this, he was utterly stunned, shouting, "What?" Before he could fully understand that notification, another line of crimson-red text appeared. However, you are the person who came closest to the true ending. This made him stammer, speechless. What? It didn't stop there. Next, a notification redder than your girlfriend's lipstick appeared, hitting Beck Eon right in the eyes. Please complete the true ending this time. It directly threw him into utter confusion as he screamed, "What?" Along with that notification, Beck Eon felt his body being sucked into another dimension. He vanished from the room. Then, in that white void, his eyes widened, clearly showing fear. He felt a strange sensation for a moment. Beck Eon woke up in a strange room. It was nothing like his modern computer room. He lay motionless on the floor. A sudden wave of dizziness hit him. Beck Eon propped his forehead up and sat up, wondering, what happened? He sat trembling, confused, observing his surroundings, trying to compose himself. He found himself in a dilapidated house and asked aloud, "Where am I?" His eyes scanned everything around. Suddenly, he spotted something very necessary right now in a corner and exclaimed happily, "A mirror! Beck Eon, step by step." Beck slowly approached the cracked mirror. But suddenly, his eyes shot wide open, his pupils dilating to their maximum as he saw himself, and time seemed to stand still. As he saw himself clearly reflected in the mirror, he was relentlessly questioning in his head, "This appearance is Beck Eon." Just then, on the ground, something flashed. A very strange thing was gradually appearing. Before Beck Eon could recover from his shock, he saw that it was a screen. Just like that, a quest appeared before him. Episode 1. Escape the Pursuit. The words appearing on it made him stare in astonishment as he speculated, "This is..." He slowly stood up, no longer having any doubt, and silently affirmed, "This is Beck Eon's starting quest." As things increasingly unfolded like a program, he became so confused that he started to break out in a cold sweat. No way. As if remembering an important detail, Beck Eon immediately thrust his hand into his pants pocket to check for something. It made him truly not dare to believe it. The thing Beck Eon had just pulled out was a piece of paper, an admission notice. Holding it in his hand, he instantly realized that this was the certificate of admission to Stella Academy. Beads of sweat rolled down his cheeks. Beck Eon's throat felt tight because it was just too similar to the game's plot. He thought, "This is unbelievable." But his face darkened as he covered his helplessness with his hand. In his head, he was relentlessly affirming, "This is definitely the world of Egger, and I must be Beck Eon." He brought a hand to his forehead, silently trying to compose himself for a moment. In his heart, he had made a bold decision for himself. "I need to be rational about this." He was lost in thought when suddenly he remembered something. That voice told me I had to achieve the true ending. With all those years of experience, Beck Eon immediately realized, but from what I know, this game doesn't have a true ending. It just has multiple endings. But my mind suddenly started racing at a bizarre speed, and I realized, wait a minute, could it be? It didn't take Beck Eon long to realize how absurd this situation was. Gritting his teeth in anger, he recalled a guess he had made. Based on the game's storyline, no one had successfully reached the true ending in the past 10 years. With that memory rushing back, he quickly moved to the window. As soon as Beck Eon woke up, he carefully and nervously peeked through a crack in the window to check the situation outside. At that same moment, he saw them. In the middle of the blizzard, a group of people in long, face-concealing cloaks were searching everywhere. He thought, "The people chasing me are about to burst in." Those strangely dressed men were chaotically shouting, "Where did that son of a whore run off to?" Seeing that, Beck Eon immediately held his breath and hid in a corner of the room, trying to stay calm. He risked a glance outside to observe, cursing under his breath, "Damn it, they're here." Just then, the leader of this strange group was drawn to something. He stopped in his tracks. With a hunter's instinct, he quickly sniffed out Beck Eon's trail and shouted to the group, "There's a house over there!" Without a second thought, he pointed and ordered his men, "Go search it!" The others obeyed in unison. His voice echoed all around. He pressed himself tightly behind the door, wondering, what do I do now? With 15 years of gaming experience, Beck Eon's eyes suddenly sharpened as he racked his brain. I can't hide here for long. His fists clenched in frustration and helplessness as he lamented, "But I can't fight them either." Eon was desperately trying to come up with a plan. What should I do? Cutting through his thoughts, the notification window appeared once again. Perfect timing. The system gave Eon a very important piece of information. You can use the skill, Flash. He read the lines, still in disbelief, questioning himself. What? I can use Flash? The Flash skill icon appeared on the screen. At that moment, his whole body began to glow with a brilliant light as thoughts raced through his mind. For Beck Eon, with a body suffering from mana leakage syndrome, a person who couldn't condense mana, there was only one ray of hope. It was the magic he had practiced day and night his entire life up until this very moment. He stood in the middle of the empty room, the system notification before his eyes. You can use the skill. Flash. Flash level 0. Max distance 9 meters, max cost, cooldown 3 seconds. Beck Eon stared at the notification, confused and anxious, thinking, is it telling me to use Flash right now? But that's only when I'm using a mouse and keyboard to control my character in the game. Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from outside. The mercenary leader and his underlings were quickly approaching the house where Beck Eon was hiding. The footsteps grew louder and louder, giving him a bad feeling. His eyes stared blankly into space for a moment before he immediately whipped his head toward the window. Panicked, unable to keep his composure as danger drew near, he thought, "Damn it, they're here!" Beck Eon was in such a panic his whole body felt flushed. He was speechless, thinking to himself, "There's no time left." This dire situation meant he couldn't just stand here and wait to die. He had to take a leap of faith, thinking, "The only thing I can do is risk it all." Outside, the leader of the thugs suddenly noticed something. Anger was clear on his face. They had realized Beck Eon had run past them. They shouted in unison, "Found the little brat! After him!" They immediately gave chase like predators hunting their prey. "Don't let him get away! Stop right there!" Although he was anxious, he kept his composure and pushed forward. Running for his life, he thought about the first part of the tutorial. Escape the pursuers using flash. Luckily, there was a wide path ahead. Beck Eon quickly ran towards it, but he couldn't stop thinking, "The people chasing me are wearing magic boots. They're much faster than me, therefore, the only way I can escape is by using flash." Feeling at a disadvantage, he fumbled with the magic and tried to calm himself down, thinking, "Calm down. You've used flash countless times before. With 15 years of gaming experience, this was so ingrained it was muscle memory." They were about to catch up to him. One of them yelled, "Hey, you little punk! You're not stopping, are you?" Hearing that, Beck Eon shot a sharp, slightly worried glance back at them and realized they've caught up. As a seasoned player, he understood the pros and cons of flash. If the user can't control the distance, they'll collide with an object and die instantly. However, before he could plan his next move, the leader had caught up and was closing in fast. He raised his huge blade to strike. "I'll send you to hell! Die!" This made Beck Eon freeze in terror, speechless. But in an instant, he turned the tables. Using his own magic, "If I use it, it'll be different." Flash. Using the flash spell, he instantly escaped the sharp blade. It was only then that Beck Eon realized it. Having saved his own skin, he smiled smugly, thinking, it worked. The surprised mercenaries could only stare in confusion, asking, "What was that, a flash? Is that guy a mage or something?" Seeing him narrowly escape death, the leader turned and furiously yelled at his men, "What are you all standing there for? After using flash, the user is immobilized for 2 seconds. So this is our chance." But cutting himself off, the leader's expression changed as he realized something. All he could do was watch Beck Eon get away, screaming in vain. "Wait, how is that brat still able to run?" Taking advantage of the forest's terrain, he ran while trying to think of a strategy, constantly reminding himself, "Be careful." Even more careful, as Beck Eon approached the treacherous turns ahead. He thought to himself, "I need to use this difficult terrain to my advantage." Because if a player can't learn how to control flash at this stage, running for his life was starting to exhaust him, leaving him gasping for air, but his thoughts didn't stop. They'll never make it to the next part, as far as I know. In fact, 99% of players can't get past this tutorial section. And even the 1% who do, can't overcome the wall of controlling flash distance and consecutive blinks. But pushing onward, Beck Eon once again used the only skill he had. 3, 2, 1, flash. He finally landed successfully. The man was shocked by his skill, exclaiming, "Using flash in terrain like this? Is that brat insane?" Then, frowning angrily, he continued to command, "All mages move to the front! Attack that brat from a distance!" Following his orders, the magic squad gathered together, preparing to act. Hearing this, he turned to look at them, thinking with concern, are they going to use magic? They immediately began casting their spells, and a purple light enveloped the area. Beck Eon instantly figured out how to save himself. Part 2 of the tutorial, use flash to dodge the magic arrows aimed at you. His face showed clear anxiety bordering on panic as he recalled the game's rules. "I can see everything behind me because it's on a screen, so I can dodge them." In this critical moment, a notification was sent from the game World of Ever, providing Beck Eon with some information. Skill: Magic Leak Syndrome is now active. Magic Leak Syndrome is a skill that generates a sixth sense and accelerates mental processing. He stared intently at the blue streaks of light approaching him. Those were the magic arrows created by the mercenaries, meant to finish him in one go. Beck Eon continuously used the skills he had accumulated to dodge the deadly arrows, but life is never that simple. At that moment, one arrow got dangerously close, filling him with dread. Without hesitation, he quickly used his skill, Flash, and along with it, came a massive, earth-shattering explosion. In the end, he managed to avoid that critical hit from the mercenaries. Beck Eon, not expecting its immense power, had thrown up an arm to shield himself. Now, as the dust and smoke began to clear, a huge crater left by the explosion was revealed. Seeing its incredible power, he finally came to his senses, thinking, "That was close." But he didn't stand around for long. He immediately took off running again. Fleeing their pursuit, he ran, relying on his knowledge of the game's plot. So, the final part. After running for a while, Beck Eon was growing tired. He panted heavily, staring straight ahead. Before him was a bottomless chasm. Just a few more steps would be a one-way ticket to the afterlife. Based on what's supposed to happen, this is Tutorial Part 3, Cross the Abyss using Flash. Even if a normal person had wings, they'd have a hard time crossing this chasm, let alone a pathetic character like Beck Eon. But he had been through this before while playing the game, and had learned from it. Beck Eon stood at the edge of the cliff, thinking, the only way to cross is to control the flash distance with perfect precision. The next events of the plot slowly came back to him. After this, I should meet a few passing mages and escape, and that's the end of the tutorial. But that was in the game. Right now, he had to think this through very carefully. To get past this part, I need to cancel the flash spell after exactly 0.1 seconds. If I fail even once, I'll die right here. He stood there, observing grimly, and spotted about 20 floating rocks. Staring at those massive stones, he struggled internally. 0.1 seconds, easier said than done. After thinking for a moment with no solution, Beck Eon clenched his fists, cursing inwardly. What kind of lunatic designed this game? That's what he was thinking anyway. But he definitely had his own plan. However, for a veteran player like me, he silently affirmed to himself, to be honest, it's doable. And yet, looking down into the bottomless abyss, another difficult problem appeared in his mind. The problem was right in front of him. At that exact moment, his pursuers caught up. Pointing at Beck Eon, one of them yelled, "He's over there!" He turned, a cold expression on his face as he looked at them and thought, the pursuers are closer than I thought. He seriously calculated as he watched them run towards him. The distance between us is about 100 meters. My flash needs 3 seconds to cool down, so it's not ready yet. Beck Eon relaxed his body and made his choice. It seems the most viable method for me to survive is... With a resolute look in his eyes, an incredibly bold idea came to him. It was about killing all of them amidst the desolate weather and snowstorms with a bottomless abyss before him, forcing Beck Eon to just hide behind a rock crevice and observe his surroundings. Thoughts surfaced in his head. Even I think this is crazy. How could I dare to think I could do that? Especially when I've never even been in a real fight before. He quietly glanced at the mercenaries trying to hunt him down and thought, if this were a game, the system wouldn't allow me to attack my pursuers. But this was reality. Seeing them gradually getting closer, Beck Eon affirmed in his mind that there was no rule saying he had to blindly follow the game's rules. And just like that, he gripped his knife, assumed a defensive stance, and continued to ponder, I don't mind the thought of killing someone, and it's not because they're my parents' enemies, according to the plot. Suddenly, Beck Eon's eyes grew colder than ever. He focused his gaze on them, realizing, they're here. It's just that I think I can win. And so, with his knife hidden from view, Beck Eon appeared before them, leaving them stunned. The leader glared in anger. Looking at him, he growled through gritted teeth. It's that bastard. He then ordered his men, get that little punk, quickly. They complied, shouting in unison, Yes, sir! The mercenaries brandished their heavy weapons. They charged straight at him to strike him down. One of them wore a contemptuous look, thinking to himself, You dare fight us alone, you fool? But Beck Eon didn't flinch at all. He affirmed to himself, You're dead for sure. Standing before them, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he calmly calculated, using magic, target distance, 8.7 meters, flash step. This stunned the arrogant mercenary from before. He was frozen in place, and even the leader stared at Beck Eon with a look of shock and fear. Just then, he suddenly flash-stepped and attacked without a hint of hesitation. He plunged his knife straight into one of their stomachs. The man coughed up blood and logged out of this world. The bloodstain remained etched on his face like an indelible mark. Even though Beck Eon knew he had just stabbed a person, his expression didn't change one bit. It even grew more resolute. As the man's blood slowly trickled down onto his hand, he mused, I can clearly feel the blood running down my fingers. I don't feel guilty at all. Cutting off his train of thought, he immediately slashed the man again decisively, continuing to think, after all, I'm just killing them to survive. Then, to their horror, he immediately pulled the knife out and gave the man one final powerful kick. The arrogant mercenary was now completely defenseless. He fell backward. One of the lackeys in the group had been taken down, defeated. This made the leader boil with rage, wanting nothing more than to tear him to shreds. Meanwhile, Beck Eon had taken this opportunity to turn around and run for it. Seeing this, the leader yelled, He's getting away! Beck Eon ran for his life, despite the lackeys still chasing him from behind. Don't let him escape, no matter what. The first step is done, he thought as he ran desperately. I've dealt with one of them, but the next attack will be very difficult. What should I do? Suddenly, he had a strange feeling. He glanced back, wondering, why is it so quiet? Did they give up? But what a surprise. The leader of the mercenaries had appeared out of nowhere, looming in front of Beck Eon and blocking his path. He skidded to a halt, realizing, no, not at all. He stared at them, sweat pouring down his face as he thought, are they going to use magic again? What if I just try to dodge? Beck Eon's legs suddenly felt heavy, not like before. He cursed inwardly. Damn it! They had no intention of going easy on him. They immediately cast a spell. The leader pointed at him and shouted, Now! The moment he finished speaking, his underling unleashed a bizarre spell, instantly and ruthlessly controlling a large stream of fire. He aimed it at Beck Eon. Instantly sensing the danger, he widened his eyes and gritted his teeth, looking for a way out. The stream of fire was like an arrow with him as its target, hurtling towards him like a missile. There's nothing I can do. He could only turn his back and run for his life, cursing in his mind, Damn it, what is with this magic? It was a stroke of luck. A tree growing from a rock appeared up ahead. Seeing it was like a drowning man finding a life raft. He was overjoyed, shouting, There it is! Without another thought, Beck Eon quickly reached for the branch, but it seemed he didn't have enough reach, so he once again used the flash step skill. At the same time, an explosion that seemed to tear the earth apart occurred. It left a huge crater, with thick smoke and dust billowing everywhere. The leader slowly approached to assess the situation. He stood there, smugly thinking Beck Eon was dead, and said with satisfaction, Teach it some manners for its arrogance and for being such a nuisance. But what met his eyes was just an empty crater. This caused his smug smile to vanish, replaced by confusion and fear. He glanced around and shouted in a panic, He's not here! But in reality, Beck Eon, knife in hand, was approaching. It wasn't until he got close that the leader felt a killing intent so strong it sent a chill down his spine, and he turned to look. The closer he got to his prey, the more he realized one of the strange things about Flash Step. Beck Eon mustered all his strength, gritted his teeth, and came to a conclusion for himself. It maintains momentum both before and after use. And just like that, he shouted the skill's name, Flash Step, then charged straight forward and stabbed an underling in the stomach. His screams echoed throughout the forest, causing the remaining henchmen who witnessed it to tremble and say, What the? But before he could finish, Beck Eon was on him like a flash of lightning, taking down the next man. It was easy. The leader was now sweating bullets as his henchmen were wiped out in the blink of an eye. Soon, Beck Eon's entire body was dyed red with their blood. After a few punches and kicks, he was getting tired and let out a sigh. They were originally a group of mercenaries, but now only this many remained. Still full of fighting spirit, he thought to himself, 2 left now. Beck Eon stared straight at the remaining mercenaries with determined eyes. He thought to himself, 2 left. I need to finish them off before the 2 behind me catch up. The leader, his eyes wide, spoke in surprise. What a freak! He has an unusual reaction speed for a mage. He continued to shout, Who the hell are you? Hearing this, he turned his cold, sharp eyes toward them, thinking, My reaction speed is, of course, faster than most professional gamers, but that's only when it comes to games. He stood still for a long moment, calculating his next move. I can't keep dodging their attacks forever, especially at closer range. As he thought this, he rushed at the man like the wind. I'll end this as quickly as possible. Seeing him charge forward, the leader wasn't afraid, but instead grinned with delight. He readied his broadsword into a defensive stance and said, I've figured out how you fight. He thought to himself, All this brat uses is flash and daggers. The foolish leader thought that as long as he protected his head and neck, that dagger won't be able to kill me. Beck Eon, now like a gust of wind, rushed forward for a direct attack. The leader, with his broadsword in hand, was ready to face him. Then, with an incredibly provocative attitude, the leader of the mercenaries yelled out, "Come on, make your move!" He immediately unleashed his Ice Wave skill to take down Beck Eon. But unafraid, he confidently used his flash skill again, and at the same time, the leader used his power to create large blocks of ice, thinking confidently, "All right, I've got him. Now let's see your face twist in pain." But suddenly his eyes flew wide open, as if he had witnessed something horrific. Beck Eon's target wasn't him, but the henchman beside him. By now, he had finished off the remaining man so quickly it left the leader utterly stunned. At close range, the mercenary leader witnessed the sharp slice of his dagger and was, for a moment, speechless. It took him about 5 seconds to regain his composure, his eyes wide with disbelief as he said, "Son of a bitch. Just a moment ago you were running for your life like you'd never fought before, and now—" In contrast to his panic, was Beck Eon's strange calmness. He glanced over at him and replied, "Just a moment ago?" Beck Eon gave a slight smirk, his eyes filled with a bit of contempt, and continued, "Thank you for helping me get better at this." His words directly infuriated the man, who gritted his teeth and spat, "You little shit. Don't think you can get away with this just because I went easy on you." At this point, his anger had reached its peak. He swung the sword in his hand and threatened, "This time I'll kill you." Paying no mind to his words, Beck Eon gathered his strength and rushed forward once more. He directly attacked him, but this time he was not at a disadvantage, with 2 weapons in his hands and his eyes filled with killing intent. Then he quickly threw a spear straight at him. Then he calculated, "Using flash in reality puts me at risk of a counterattack. He threw that spear to bait me into defending from the front, then he'll attack me from another side. Beck Eon predicted his actions and continued to think, "I won't let you get your way." The leader, seeing the situation, grinned with delight and thought, "Perfect. Now I just need to attack him when he gets close." But before he could do anything, Beck Eon vanished from his sight in an instant. Suddenly his face turned pale, his eyes bulged, and his weak voice uttered a few words. Only now did he sense something. Contrary to his initial calculations, he gritted his teeth and roared in anger, "No way!" The harsh truth was that he didn't do what he had predicted at all. Instead, Beck Eon had stabbed the mercenary leader directly through the heart. Only then did he realize, so from the very beginning, he intended to attack me from the front? And just like that, the battle was over, which also meant the end of Episode 1. Escaping the pursuit has ended. A notification appeared. You have received experience. You will receive an additional reward for being the only one to develop the storyline according to the Constellation Project. At the same time, Beck Eon was sitting against a cliff. He was covered in wounds, breathing heavily. Beck Eon tried to reach for his dagger, but something made him freeze. He stood stunned before the blood-soaked corpses. Beck Eon couldn't believe his eyes and thought to himself, "Right. This isn't a dream." He suddenly collapsed to the ground. Replaying those scenes of slaughter in his mind, he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. My first flash, my first battle, and my first time killing someone. Beck Eon was lost in his own silence. I killed a person to survive. Pushing that thought aside, he stood up and brushed the dirt off his clothes. After a long silence, he let out a sigh and made a decision. I have to get out of here, fast. But he suddenly remembered something and froze. Then Beck Eon turned around, looked, and said, Wait a minute. He frowned, staring intently at the corpse, deep in thought about something. Next, he quickly walked over and began to search the mercenaries' bodies, thinking, This feels a bit wrong, but I have to be realistic. I don't have any money. After a moment of searching, Beck Eon luckily found a bag of gold, overjoyed. Ah, found it. Let's see, this much. Around 2 million won is still better than nothing. But the joy was short-lived. As he held the bag of gold, he thought to himself, Now the problem is, ahead was a cliff covered in white snow, and a bottomless abyss was waiting for him. Beck Eon dragged his heavy feet through the white snow. Standing on the brink of life and death, he told himself that he had to cross this cliff. While he was thinking, a voice suddenly echoed from somewhere, Is anyone here? It caught his attention. On the other side of the chasm was a group of people shouting loudly. They were calling from over there. Seeing them, Beck Eon thought to himself that this was a ray of hope. As he got closer, he guessed, "That's the group of mages from the tutorial, right?" He had to seize this chance. Beck Eon immediately raised his hand high and waved, shouting back, "I'm over here!" The other side responded, "There's no bridge nearby. Can you make it across?" "Yes, I'm on my way." Just then, a stranger heard him. He heard his words and immediately informed his comrade, "Wait a minute, he said he can cross." Hearing this, Kai asked, "But to cross this cliff, he'd have to be at least a third-rank engineer. Can that young guy really do it?" He replied vaguely, "I'm not sure." Suddenly, he stopped mid-conversation, his eyes widening as he stared ahead. Everyone gasped in unison, surprised. They watched as, in the blink of an eye, he jumped from one floating cliff to another. The two of them stared, not looking away for a second. Beck Eon calmly used Flash to jump from cliff to cliff, seeing him move so nimbly. They couldn't help but wonder, what is that? Some kind of jumping magic? He immediately answered, "It's Flash." At this moment, Lee Sioman just stood there silently, observing Beck Eon's every move. The red-haired student spoke up again. "Flash? But you can't control the direction and distance with Flash." Watching him flawlessly execute each flash, he asked doubtfully, "How is he doing that?" Instantly, his jaw dropped in amazement at something else. He saw two strangers following him in the distance and asked in confusion, "Those two, are they with him?" Before he could understand what was happening, his face suddenly showed fear. On the other side, there were still a few mages, henchmen for the mercenaries, their eyes filled with killing intent. He silently cast a strange type of magic. Then, he created a dark projectile aimed straight at Beck Eon, causing everyone on the other side to cry out in fear. "Hey, watch out!" he heard them shout. He immediately turned around, cursing in his head, "Damn it!" To save his own skin, he couldn't delay and instantly used his familiar skill, Flash, to dodge. Luckily escaping with his life, Beck Eon composed himself and looked back to assess the situation. He only saw the aftermath of the explosion. It was truly horrific, leaving behind a huge, crater-like hole. With just one glance, he immediately recognized them. "Ah, it's those mercenaries from before. This is really dangerous." Beck Eon chose a safe spot to stand and thought carefully. Flash needs another 3 seconds to cool down. Dodging all their magic is impossible. He looked back over his shoulder, constantly calculating. "I have to find another floating rock to use as a foothold." Before he could do anything, his eyes widened in fear. It turned out there was another mage. He had taken advantage of Beck Eon's distraction to launch a sneak attack. Fortunately, his quick reflexes allowed him to sense the danger and successfully dodge. But as the wave of power grazed past, it was still enough to singe off a few of his precious strands of hair. But it didn't end there. The impact of the spell was so powerful that the rock beneath his feet couldn't withstand it and began to crack and shatter. It was so sudden that he couldn't react in time and simply fell. But in his mind, he still registered the thought, "I'm falling." But his main character plot armor meant he wasn't going to die that easily. In an instant, Beck Eon twisted his body around and immediately scanned his surroundings. At this distance, it would be difficult. He thought, "Damn it, all the floating rocks are too far away from me." At that moment, Beck Eon began to radiate power, apparently deciding to risk it all in the hopes of landing on a ledge just a few centimeters away. He instantly used Flash. His injured hand finally managed to get a firm grip on the cliff face, though he was still left dangling. But inside, Beck Eon was overjoyed. "I'm alive!" Before he could even catch his breath, a power source like a blazing fire shot up from below to incinerate him. Even in this situation, his mind didn't stop thinking. Or maybe not. It was like a rocket right at his feet. At that moment, Beck Eon accepted the 99% certainty of his own death and thought to himself, "I'm about to die." Just as he was facing death, a stream of blue power suddenly flew in from somewhere. It easily and completely destroyed the terrifying dark power of those mages. After that deliberate collision, all that remained was smoke, dust, and strange turquoise stones. Beck Eon held on tightly to the ledge, his eyes filled with suspicion. He wondered to himself, what was that magic just now? A spear of ice wrapped in lightning. Who could possibly combine two elements into one attack like that? His eyes widened at the thought. And what's more, to calculate the trajectory so precisely without using a single bit of mana. Who could execute an attack so perfectly? At the same time, down below with the group of mages, all eyes were on Isomon, because it was she who had used magic to counter the mercenary's spell, to save his life. Just then, the two mages who witnessed their formation get destroyed wore expressions not just of surprise, but also of a hint of fear. Impossible. They quickly sensed the danger and turned to flee. Beck Eon watched them run for their lives and breathed a sigh of relief. He was still clinging tightly to the rock, thinking to himself with a sigh. Looks like I'm going to live. After a while, he finally made it to the other side of the chasm and started interacting with the group of mages. Beck Eon immediately recognized the person who had saved his life. He hurried over to her and started the conversation. "Thank you for helping me back there." Isomon didn't even spare him a glance, saying coldly, "I didn't do it to receive any gratitude, so don't worry about it." Beck Eon replied awkwardly, "Ah, all right." He suddenly found himself drawn to Isomon's mysteriousness, thinking to himself, "She has the most beautiful voice I've ever heard, but she seems pretty hard to approach." But his expression returned to one of indifference. Whatever, he thought to himself. Beck Eon recalled the game's story. Even though they were bandits who ravaged and plundered villages according to the knowledge he had gathered, the truth was, most activities like that were carried out by the dark magic cult. But even so, that's over now. The moment I cross this cliff, I'll enter the mage's territory, and those people from the dark magic cult won't be able to follow me anymore. Beck Eon sighed and stared into the distance, a flicker of excitement in his heart as he thought. Not to mention, they don't even know who I am. Just then, a notification panel appeared. The world of e-game sent him new information. Chapter 2. Enrollment in Stella Academy. After a quick read-through, Beck Eon spoke with confidence. "This is Chapter 2? It doesn't sound too hard." But when he took a closer look, the words Stella Academy were enough to make him dizzy and lightheaded. He reluctantly said, "How am I supposed to go to school at this age?" In the quiet of the night, the mage's carriage moved silently, continuing its journey. The coachman silently urged the horses on through the darkness. Sitting in the carriage, an exhausted Beck Eon drifted off to sleep without even realizing it. In that moment, childhood memories came flooding back to him. An image of when Beck Eon was just an adorable little boy. He appeared with big, round eyes, happily calling for his mother. She, with her slender frame, smiled joyfully as she heard him say, "When I grow up, I'm going to be a mage." Her voice, full of warmth, rang out. "All right, Mom believes you can do it." Eon held the book in his hands. As he read, he thought, "Mom and Dad worked so hard, saving up money to buy me this old magic book." Even as a little boy back then, he was already thinking, "I'll study really hard so I don't let Mom and Dad down." To achieve that, the young Beck Eon's efforts were seen by his mother, who always took care of him when he fell asleep while studying. But life is always unfair. Those dreams seemed to shatter completely, as his mother, worried, repeatedly called for the doctor. She hugged Beck Eon tightly, unable to believe the doctor's words. She said, "Are you saying my son has Manhwa syndrome?" At that moment, he panicked and cried out in denial, "No, that's impossible." He seemed to be completely merging with the game character, thinking, "Are these Beck Eon's memories?" The memories rushed back in a torrent, making Beck Eon unable to tell the difference, questioning himself. Then the image of a young, sobbing Beck Eon appeared once more, making him believe they were his own memories. That image of the little boy startled him awake. His head was spinning, throbbing as if it was being split by a hammer. He glanced at the sunlight shining on his face and came to his senses, mumbling, "It's morning." A red-haired guy sitting across from him saw this and spoke up. "Ah, you're awake? I was just about to wake you." He added, "We'll be arriving soon in Le Joisha, a satellite city of Arcanum." After the carriage had been moving for a while, the leader of the group called out, "Let's stop here and rest for a bit." Everyone got out of the carriage and spread out, talking amongst themselves. When Beck Eon got out, he stretched to warm up after the long journey. He was surprised to feel a strange gaze on him. Turning, he saw that Isomon was still looking at him. Her action left Beck Eon utterly confused. And yet, after looking, she immediately turned her back and walked away without a word. It made him give a strained laugh, thinking to himself, "So cold." Looking at his surroundings, he continued to rest. "Everything seems to be fine. I was worrying too much. I'm glad the timeline is closer to the modern era than the Middle Ages." With 15 years of gaming experience, he knew that magic existed in the world of Eager. However, in the safe cities, There were also trains and airships, as well as portals, set up for convenient travel to faraway places. Beck Eon glanced at the carriage and thought, right now we're heading to Lejuicha to board an airship. Beck Eon imagined a beautiful, colorful city. Lejuicha was on the route to Arcanum, and the real story only begins in Arcanum, the city of magic. Just like that, he also pinpointed the school he would be attending, the location of the famous magic towers. Along with that, there were the Magic Knights, and the 5 prestigious academies in Arcanum, and the school with the most powerful mages and the most outstandingly brilliant students was Stella Academy. Beck Eon leaned against the carriage, his thoughts firm. So, Stella is a gathering place for geniuses and nobles from all over the world. Finishing his reminiscence about Arcanum, he grew pensive. I really don't understand how Beck Eon got into a place like that. At this thought, he suddenly remembered he hadn't checked his own abilities yet. He immediately summoned the system window, and the information for Mana Leak Syndrome appeared. Level 1. Strength increases by 0.3%, agility increases by 0.5%, sensitivity increases by 10%. Sixth Sense. Consumes the user's mental power to activate mana detection within a 12-meter radius and activates accelerated perception, which automatically triggers when danger is detected. After reviewing the status screen, he was secretly glad about his sixth sense and accelerated perception. If it weren't for these 2 things, I probably would have been dead a long time ago. Remembering that scene, he concluded that it was a physical curse that made it impossible for him to accumulate mana inside his body. The Mana Leak Syndrome. It was just like in the original story. It was an inherent curse tied to Beck Eon, and although it was a bad thing, it helped him detect surrounding mana with his sixth sense. At the same time, it allowed him to sense anything attacking him without needing to see it. Accelerated perception gave him the ability to perceive events faster than normal. Whenever a threat came at him, it would seem as if it were moving in slow motion. After analyzing it, Beck Eon thought that the ability was essential for someone like him who couldn't use mana. However, the sixth sense couldn't be used for long periods. It consumes a lot of mental power, so it leaves behind significant after effects. Next were the stats. He looked down to read on. Beck Eon's stat sheet. Strength, 1 star, 59%. Agility, 1 star, 81%. Stamina, 0 stars, 97%. Sensitivity, 1 star, 97%. Endurance, 1 star, 51%. Mental power, 1 star, 43%. Mana experience, 10. 1 skill, blink, level 0. Trait, Mana Leak Syndrome, level 1. After looking it over, he thought that stats like these weren't too bad for a start. He mused to himself. The original Beck Eon had very low sensitivity, but it seems part of my personality has influenced the stats. As a veteran player, Beck Eon already knew that in the world of Aegir, there wasn't just one type of level. Each stat had its own rank, skills had levels, and stats had stars. Beck Eon recalled that the maximum star rank for a stat was 9 stars, but basically no one could reach that threshold. This made him think, I've been playing this game for over 15 years. My personal record was only 8 stars for both sensitivity and endurance. He clicked on the system window, wanting to take a closer look. From now on, I should invest in sensitivity to enhance my sixth sense and reaction speed. After all, I can train my stamina and flexibility in other ways. He looked at the changed stats. Sensitivity, 1 star, 97%. Endurance, 1 star, 51%. Mental power, 1 star, 43%. All right, that's done, he thought with interest. After finishing all the adjustments, he began calculating again. The current problem is this Mana Leak Syndrome. If I can't find a way to deal with it, I won't be able to live for long. I have to upgrade it to Secret of the Natural Body as soon as possible. He stood under the vast sky. Beck Eon was constantly considering how to improve his Mana Leak Syndrome. The solution was at Stella Academy. So, I have no other choice but to go to Stella. If I want to prevent the apocalypse and treat this syndrome. He let out a helpless, resigned sigh. I really didn't want to go there. I wish there was some way to help me right now. Just then, a system message popped up. You have missed several notifications. He thought in surprise, I've never seen this before. Before he could click on it, someone called out, Hey, let's go! Startled, Beck Eon replied, Okay, I'm coming. He turned to get on the vehicle, thinking, I'll check it later. but he didn't notice that Icy Al Moon was watching him the whole time. She observed his every move without saying a word. The scene changes to the ship, which has finally taken off. It headed straight for Stella Academy. The captain made an announcement. The ship is now departing for Arcanum. All passengers, please take your seats. Just then, a rich, purple-haired young master saw Beck Eon. Seeing him looking around, the young master sneered at his cronies. Look at that guy, gawking around like a lost kid. First time on an airship, must be some kind of country bumpkin. The purple-haired guy intentionally spoke loudly, mocking him. I don't get why Stella lets peasants like him set foot in here. Hearing this, Beck Eon turned to look at the group. They continued to taunt him. The world's most prestigious academy is being tainted by lowly creatures like this. Beck Eon endured the humiliation in silence. Then, to the young master's surprise, he let out a sigh. Then he turned away, thinking, kids are the same everywhere, I guess. Seeing himself being ignored, the purple-haired guy became furious, his face turning red as he shouted, Did you just sigh at me? He fumed, muttering, That lowly bastard! He ran after him, shouting, Hey, stop right there! Suddenly, everyone around them stopped paying attention to him and started whispering about something else. Annoyed, he turned back and asked, What the hell is going on? Why is everyone suddenly making such a fuss? The purple-haired guy was suddenly stunned when he saw who was approaching. A girl with long, platinum blonde hair, adorned with expensive jewelry. As she stepped inside, everyone immediately recognized her and exclaimed, Princess Beck Eon! Hearing that, Beck Eon turned back, wondering, did he just say Beck Eon? The girl with platinum pink hair and crimson eyes, that's the princess of the Adalabit kingdom, Hong Bijin Adalabit. She walked proudly amidst the crowd's murmurs. Seeing this, the purple-haired guy stepped forward to greet her. It's an honor. However, her only reply was a sharp, cold glance as she walked past him without a second thought, leaving him frozen and stammering. Hong Bijin walked towards the staircase where Beck Eon was standing. Leaving the stunned young masters in her wake, she passed by Beck Eon, and he realized who she was. So this is the villain of this world. Hong Bijin, one of the main characters of this game. She and the main female character are always at odds. In the end, she dies no matter which route you choose. She's brutally murdered in some endings. In another, she's bullied by the entire academy and then expelled. Another ending after experiencing something humiliating. No one ever sees her again. It's as if the developers have a personal grudge and want her to suffer no matter what. Beck Eon recalled the past. He'd heard that the guys who played this game all liked her. And she was really pretty, too. Just then, his stomach rumbled. Without another thought, he went up the stairs. He had to find something to eat. After seeing the luxurious food items along with their astronomical prices, Beck Eon picked one up to look and was left completely speechless. He immediately turned and left, endlessly scolding himself in his head as he walked away. Everything here is so expensive. I guess I'll just eat when I get to Acarium. Just then, an announcement echoed, reaching everyone's ears. Attention passengers, the train will be arriving at Arcanum in 10 minutes. Please move to the first floor. I repeat, the train will be arriving at Arcanum in 10 minutes. Please move. After hearing the announcement, Beck Eon smiled and thought, it's finally starting. Good. From now on, this is my reality. Let's do this. Beck Eon leaned against the wall, looking troubled. He sighed and thought to himself, good thing I got that sorted out. Beck Eon felt sad. But will I be able to survive in Stella Academy? He thought of those mysterious people, not surviving in this world. Beck Eon looked out the window. If only there was something that could help me right now, he suddenly realized. Now that I think about it, I have an unread notification. The system panel appeared. The Constantatio project has sent you a special reward. 1. A lower version of the items you used in the game. 2. A lower version of the skills you acquired in the game. 3. XP points. Beck Eon rested his chin on his hand and thought, at least this system has some humanity. Let's see, which one should I pick? He was torn between a taking reflector or Prior's lightning. As if reading his mind, the system announced, according to the search results, the tier of the items is too high and they will be downgraded. He asked again, what about hyperspace flash then? According to the skill search, this skill is an upgraded version of flash and cannot be obtained. However, you can use the reward to slightly enhance the flash skill. Hearing this, Beck Eon froze. It really has to be downgraded? The system continued. Due to the deficiency in your narrative energy, we cannot fully materialize it. He asked, "What's that?" The system replied, "The force that drives the story's progression is called narrative energy. If you continue to explore the hidden stories of the main story, the energy will be accumulated." At this point, Beck Eon finally understood. "In short, you can't give me overpowered items because I'm just a newbie, right?" He fell into a thoughtful silence as the system remained quiet. Beck Eon continued to ask, "Then what about the finch glasses?" The system went silent again. Then it finally replied, "According to the system check, it is concluded that the item can be provided." "All right then, I'll take it." As soon as he finished speaking, a blue light appeared in his hand, forming an item that looked like a normal pair of glasses. Looking at it, Beck Eon thought, "I can't believe the day has come when I actually have to wear this thing." The finch glasses is an item that contains all the information I gathered while playing the game. In the world of Eager, one can't simply recall or read information about monsters they've hunted or knowledge they've acquired. That's why players developed countless items, to store information in their own way. And so did I. With that thought, he put the glasses on. The lenses lit up, and the information panel appeared again. Finch glasses. Description: Can't remember what you ate last night? Don't worry, because these glasses have got you covered. It records in detail everything you've ever seen. Special feature: sealed finch folder. Use intellect to activate. Seeing this, Beck Eon immediately used his intellect to open the folder. System loading. Opening finch folder. Then, the folder opened, displaying information. Alchemy materials, hunting grounds, dungeons, monsters, characters. Beck Eon glanced over the list and thought, "This is good enough." He blended into the crowd. "This place is just like the real world, so I can't talk about what I can do using the system, but with these glasses, I can get back about half of the abilities I used to have." Beck Eon closed the folder. As he was walking and thinking, a voice rang out, catching his attention. "Hey, who's that over there?" Up ahead was a girl surrounded by whispers. "You mean the eldest daughter of the traitor, Dachman?" They whispered among themselves. "Goodness, how dare she still show her face here? Shh, she'll hear you." Beck Eon wondered to himself, "Isolette?" He thought, "Now that I think about it, one of the functions of the finch glasses allows me to register or check character information in the main story." Then, Beck Eon used the glasses to open the system panel and check the info on Isolette. Fake heroine, ice mage, drinks pickle juice before eating pizza, eldest daughter of Dachman. Her father's death led to the downfall of her family. Dies later. He wondered to himself, "She's a fake heroine?" To talk about Isolate, the fake heroine, there's one point that must be mentioned. Although the place I'm in is the world of Eager, the truth is that Eager is a game based on a fictional romance novel, Don't Love the Princess. And that novel is about the heroine, Isolate, who lost all her relatives. She grows up by confronting the schemes of Hong Bijin, the villain, and finally ends up with the male lead. Thinking of this, he felt a little sad. In the ending, her revenge plot completely disappears, and she's protected by the other male characters. It has a sad ending after receiving a lot of backlash from readers, but the problem is, although the world in the game is based on the novel, the plot is completely different. In the game, a character named Flame was added and replaced, the hero's role. Furthermore, this character Flame also has her own backstory. She was once a woman with a normal life in the modern world. She was a fan of the novel Don't Love the Princess and was reincarnated into this world, Beck Eon concluded. So, unlike the novel, Isimone becomes a fake hero in the game, while Flame becomes the true hero. No matter how hard the player tries, she still can't survive in any of the storylines. This is the result of being pushed out of the true hero's position. After thinking for a moment, he took off his glasses and mumbled, "Well, it has nothing to do with me anyway." Beck Eon watched Isimone's retreating back. "But am I just imagining things?" He thought, "I feel like I've met her somewhere before." Then Beck Eon denied it again. "I must be imagining it. I should get ready." Time passed. At Stella Academy, the new students had all gathered in the courtyard. The principal began to speak. "As you all know," the principal's voice echoed, "the dark. Mages are sorcerers, those who have obtained the power of another world and turned into monsters. Even now, Those dark mages continue to invade us by opening persona gates or releasing ancient dungeons to invade the magical world. Our mission as mages is to protect the world from the invasion of these dark forces. While the principal was speaking, some people started whispering and complaining, starting the semester with a boring speech, so lame. The principal continued. And next up is the oath ceremony for the 4 students with the highest scores, along with the new student representative. Please come up to the stage. Hearing this, the new students who were called came up to the stage one by one. They were the center of attention and the important figures right now. Seeing them, Beck Eon thought to himself, they all look so radiant. It really suits their positions as main characters. His eyes lit up. But the most outstanding one here is... Beck Eon looked up at the boy with sparkling crimson eyes. The people below were buzzing about him. The new student representative, Ma Yusong, he got the highest entrance score? How can someone be so talented and handsome? It was only then that he realized. So this is the famous Ma Yusong. Ma Yusong. He's the perfect example of the phrase, throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. With a 9-star mana index, and potential close to that of the gods, he is one of the natural-born geniuses who can control every element in the world. He made up his mind. Even if I can't make it to the final ending, I at least have to avoid the bad endings by getting Ma Yusong on the good side. He looked at the person next to him. However, that's a girl with short hair. That must be Flame, Beck Eon thought. But it also depends on her actions from now on. She's from the outside, just like me. Maybe teaming up with her is a good idea, but things will get complicated if she sees me as an enemy, and rejects me flat out. Anyway, I have the advantage in terms of information, so I shouldn't be reckless. Flame is a reader of a fictional romance novel, while I'm a player of a fantasy romance game. I swear to fulfill my duties, although my importance in the plot is less than an NPC in a village shop. Furthermore, the hero has a special ability that allows her to purify the dark mages. Besides that, she can also bring misery to those close to her. I'll definitely be affected too. He looked at the people on the honor stage. My role is to support the main characters from a distance, Beck Eon resolved, and limit my involvement with them as much as possible. At that moment, the principal spoke up. The entrance ceremony is now concluded. Beck Eon and everyone else heard the announcement and responded with enthusiastic applause. A system window suddenly appeared with a notification. Chapter 2, Entering Stella Academy has been completed. A gentle sunlight covered Stella Magic Academy. The students were all present and seated neatly in their places. Beck Eon felt a little sad. It's been a while since I graduated from university, so it feels strange to be a high school student again, he thought. But still, Beck Eon sighed, pulling out a Stella treasure and examining it before continuing his thoughts. It's good that I have this. The item in his hand was a Stella pocket watch, proof of being a student at the most prestigious academy. Stella. If you have this, you'll receive better service and treatment than those with a Magic Warrior certificate. Beck Eon chuckled to himself as he put the watch in his pocket. I want to use this quickly, and carry it around outside too. Just then, the classroom door slowly opened. The sound broke the quiet atmosphere. Professor Lee Han-won appeared with a stern expression. In his hand was a stack of exam papers. All students to your seats, he said. The survey will begin now. Other than the items you're allowed to have, put everything else away. Those who wear glasses must have them checked first. Beck Eon sat with his arms crossed. So, a test right after the entrance ceremony, huh? The curriculum at Stella Academy is much harsher than at Korean universities. We have to take a test on the very first day of school. It's called a placement survey, which means it's a test for class placement. Professor Lee Han-won stood at the podium and said loudly, All right, you may begin. Beck Eon looked at the questions on the paper and didn't understand a thing. He felt helpless. I don't understand what any of this says. This is really hard. The class placement test has nothing to do with the entrance exam and is famous for its terrifying difficulty. Students will be placed in classes F through S depending on the test results. The classroom became quiet again. All the students were focused on the test. Of course, most of the easy-to-play characters are in S class. On the other hand, there was Beck Eon, who entered the academy, ranked last out of 1,141 students. Beck Eon sat in contemplation. I already got in. I wonder if it's okay to hand in a blank paper? Surely the school won't expel me, right? I'll probably just be automatically placed in F class. Suddenly, his attention was caught by the person sitting below and near him. Ma Yuxiong looked away, bored. He looked at him. Ma Yuxiong. Beck Eon thought to himself, is he already done? He looked at the test on Ma Yuxiong's desk. The test paper. He had already completed it. Beck Eon let out a sigh without realizing it. No wonder that guy's life is so boring. The character Ma Yuxiong's trait is boring. He was born into the most powerful family in the world with natural talent and a genius intellect. Everything is easy for him. That must be why, Beck Eon thought. Depending on how the female characters act, Ma Yuxiong's personality will be decided as either good or evil. The dark magic cult, a group that wants to destroy humanity, would obviously be interested in Ma Yuxiong. Beck Eon glanced at Ma Yuxiong, who was sitting with his eyes closed, bored. His biggest problem comes from his family. He looked down at his own test paper. Anyway, compared to a genius like him, I'm just pathetic. Suddenly, he realized something. Wait a minute. I can use the Bun glasses. I've used them a lot to learn new skills at the library. Beck Eon quietly took the glasses out from inside his shirt. Great. I've got nothing to lose, so I might as well give it a shot. Just as he was about to put the glasses on, Professor Lee Han-won appeared out of nowhere behind him, making him freeze. Wait, what are those glasses? Lee Han-won looked at him sternly. I'm certain I told you that if you intend to use glasses, you must report them for inspection beforehand. He did say that, Beck Eon thought to himself. Before Beck Eon could say a word, Lee Han-won reached out and took the glasses from his hand. I will inspect them. He held the glasses up, observing them for a long time. Beck Eon watched him, terrified. What do I do now? If he finds out these glasses have magic, I'll be expelled. Suddenly he heard something. Huh? It was the system's voice. A missing part of the bulbul glasses has been found. Would you like to summon it? Beck Eon's jaw dropped in panic. No, please, system, don't do anything. Professor Lee Han-won observed the glasses for a moment without a word. He handed them back to him. I don't sense any mana from these. Just remember to ask first next time. Beck Eon gave a forced laugh and took the glasses. Ah, yes, sir. He flinched. Whoa! If its original function had activated, I would have been in real trouble. He put on the glasses and activated them. The test paper immediately vibrated, and the answers appeared right after. Whoa! I can see the real answers. Beck Eon quickly copied the answers. I've hit the jackpot. At this rate, I might even get first place. He was a little overjoyed. I'll definitely get out of Class F, and maybe even get into Class A. Professor Lee Han-won's voice broke the silence in the classroom. Time's up. Everyone, submit your papers. Beck Eon looked up, surprised. Huh? Right after, the test papers floated into the air. Beck Eon's jaw dropped. Huh? A stream of magic swept the papers up and towards the professor. He panicked. I only finished 3 questions. Lee Han-won checked the test papers, and his expression immediately changed. Beck Eon took off his glasses. And here I thought I'd finally escape Class F. Perhaps that was too much to ask for Beck Eon. Just as he took off the glasses, he was a little surprised. Huh? Professor Lee Han-won stood before Beck Eon with a grim face. You. Give me those glasses. Immediately. Now. Beck Eon had no idea what was going on. Sir? Lee Han-won seriously observed the glasses. It can't be. He turned to another student. You come here. Go get Dr. Graham. That student immediately replied, Yes, sir. Beck Eon looked at the professor, still not understanding what was happening. What's suddenly wrong with him? I even wrote my answers carefully so I wouldn't be caught cheating. Am I busted? In another room, Lee Han-won's voice rang out. What do you think, Doctor? Dr. Graham observed seriously. He said, The way that student answered the questions is indeed very suspicious. Professor Lee Han-won immediately chimed in, So, did he check? Before he could finish, the doctor spoke again. But he didn't cheat. I can't sense any magic at all. Coming from these glasses, Graham said with certainty. That student completed the test with his own abilities. Dr. Graham chuckled and patted Beck Eon's shoulder in praise. Ho ho! How interesting. This is the first time in my life I've seen a case like this. Anyway, Professor Lee Han-won, you should apologize to the student and guide him well. I understand, Lee Han-won replied. He looked at Beck Eon. It was my misunderstanding. I apologize. To be honest, I really did cheat, though. It's a good thing I turned off the function otherwise, Beck Eon replied gently, his voice calm. It's all right, sir. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm so lucky I didn't get caught. The morning at Stella Magic Academy was peaceful. In Professor Lee Han-won's office. Professor Lee Han-won was sitting at his desk with Dr. Graham, reviewing the new students' test papers. Lee Han-won looked at one paper that got the first question right, his eyes serious. Suddenly, a voice called out. "Oh, Professor Lee Han-won!" Professor Eden Timon walked over with a pleasant expression. "Are these the entrance exams for this year's new students?" Lee Han-won replied, "Yes." She said enthusiastically, "I heard there are a ton of outstanding students this year." Lee Han-won looked up and answered, "It seems so. There's Hong Bijin, from the most famous family of fire mages, the Princess of Adolabit, the Kingdom of Flames. Next is someone who, at just 12 years old, became the chosen heir to the throne of the Scalvan Empire for his magical talent, Jeremy Scalvan, the prince who defeated all of his older brothers. In the battle for the throne, and hailing from the world's greatest magic tower, the Full Moon Tower, Professor Eden Timon, the heir to the tower, smiled. I heard that creating the questions was very difficult because so many students from famous families are attending this year. There are bound to be a lot of interesting questions." "I'm glad you like it," Lee Han-won replied. After speaking, he looked down again at the test in his hands. Just as Professor Eden Timon had said, this year's placement test had some new questions. The first 3 questions were very difficult for ordinary students to solve. All 3 of them contained hidden intentions, testing their flexibility. If it was a problem that couldn't be solved, would the test taker know to skip it and move on to the next question? Second, how would a student solve a problem that had never appeared in the textbooks before? Lee Han-won was still lost in his thoughts. The era of learning magic based solely on theory and memorization was over. This is now an era of competition that requires creative thinking and rapid judgment. However, these questions didn't actually require students to provide a real answer. In fact, more than 1,000 out of 1,141 students left this question blank. Among the 100 students who did provide a solution, almost none of them were correct. He frowned. Among the new students, only 3 had answered all 3 questions correctly. There was Ma Yuxiang, the nation's genius, who appeared like a comet from an unknown background. Then there was Flame, admitted on the headmaster's recommendation. Although he's a commoner, his talent is recognized as being nearly on par with Ma Yuxiang's. The last one is Beck Eon. Lee Han-won pondered thoughtfully. Ma Yuxiang and Flame are called geniuses, and I'm sure that Beck Eon is the student with the lowest entrance score. I didn't think he'd be able to solve all of these hidden questions, especially when he couldn't answer any of the other questions. Eden Timon looked at Lee Han-won, puzzled. "I'm wondering why you're so interested in the new students' scores." Lee Han-won replied, "It seems there's a student with a rather illogical score." Eden Timon said again, "That's understandable. After all, even if a series of formulas and calculations fail to solve it, someone can still suddenly think of the solution." Lee Han-won looked up at Professor Eden Timon. "Do you think this kid is a prodigy?" Eden Timon shrugged. "It could just be a coincidence." Eden Timon turned her back, and Lee Han-won silently watched her leave. He let out a breath. On his desk was Beck Eon's file. Underneath it was a small note in clear handwriting. "Admitted on special exception due to extremely skilled control of Blink," Lee Han-won mused. "So the child the headmaster granted special admission to is quite different, isn't he?" The corners of his lips curved up. "A student who is a combat mage specializing in Blink." Lee Han-won looked at Beck Eon's photo. "We'll find out soon enough, whether it's a coincidence or if the kid is truly special." The students were gathered, chattering excitedly. Everyone was both eager and anxious. "I heard the class placement lists are being posted today. I'm so nervous. I wonder what class I'll be in. My mom told me not to even bother coming home if I don't get into Class A." Beck Eon stood not far away, thinking with frustration, "I can't believe I have to go check the placement board myself. In the game, I could just check it with a single click." All the students were packed tightly in front of the placement lists. Suddenly, one of the students recognized Beck Eon. "Is that Beck Eon? Is that Beck?" He stood silently, watching everyone talk about him. "I heard. He got 1 point on the magic assessment entrance exam." "Huh? Seriously? How did someone like him get into Stella?" I'm starting to doubt Stella's standards. Ignoring the chatter, Beck Eon slowly walked up to see the list. Whatever. Say what you want. I'm just going to check my class and leave. He thought about his terrible test performance. He naturally went to look at the class lists for Class E and F. It's fine. Beck Eon calmly looked up to find his name. Huh? My name isn't here. His name was completely absent from the Class F list. Beck Eon felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. Don't tell me I got expelled just because I only answered 3 questions. No way. Am I screwed? Beck Eon. Oh my God, why is he here? There must be some mistake. Finally. His name was finally there. Beck Eon glanced toward where his name was called. A group of students stood before the placement board. Their tone was slightly dissatisfied. Yeah, that's right. Us Lex from the house of Marquis Jack Balin, ranked 29th, also got into Class A. Even Kai from Class A got a perfect score on the written exam and ranked 17th. So why someone like him? Beck Eon frowned, confused. What's wrong? Something is strange. Should I go check? Beck Eon was stunned. Whoa! That was his name. Beck Eon. Beck Eon stood frozen, not believing his eyes. Why is my name here? He was so tense he couldn't speak. This can't be. What is happening? The most special rank that all students dreamed of achieving, Class S, where the most exceptional students of the finest magic school, Stella Academy, gather. Unlike the other grades, which have multiple classes, the S rank has only 41 students and a single class. But Beck Eon frowned, thinking, why was I placed in Class S? There must be a mistake. I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to be seeing the main characters in class a lot more often now. Beck Eon mused that getting involved with the main characters would only get him killed sooner. I can't change classes. He immediately turned and quickly walked away. Well then, I'll just have to try to be as invisible as possible. I can do this. Beck Eon seemed to still be lost in his own thoughts, not noticing his surroundings. Not far away, a girl who had noticed him opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something. A tense atmosphere filled the room. The sound of slapping echoed throughout, as if Hong Bijin was on the receiving end of some brutal hits. They came from her mother, Hong Bijin, a professor of the fire element. Her face was ferocious. You got 3 entire questions wrong? Even Princess Isel of the Manhwa Duchy got 2 questions right. Hong Bijin collapsed to the floor, enduring her mother's harsh words. You can't even answer questions that a bug all could solve. You're not even as good as a bug. Remember that and do it again for me. She continued to ask, Do you understand, Bijin? Bijin replied lifelessly, Yes, mother. Her face was stern as she looked at her daughter. Hong Bijin smirked, then continued to speak. Listen here, Bijin, she threatened. You will not follow the same path I did, being exiled from the kingdom only to end up with this stupid professor position. You will not become a disgrace to the entire kingdom. Suddenly, Hong Bijin leaned down, her hand touching Bijin's face, red from being slapped. What you need to do is become a more useful existence than your sister. At this, she gave a sinister smile. Hong Bijin's voice was full of sarcasm. Do you understand what I mean? Desperate and dazed, Hong Bijin replied, I understand, mother. After Hong Bijin left, a thought flashed through Hong Bijin's mind. I don't understand. I live and solve everything according to what I've been taught. The problem is the magic I've never learned, spells I've never known, and formulas I've never been taught. Why? Tears streamed down her cheeks. Why? Hong Bijin despaired. Why do you always torment me, mother? The scene changes to the S-Class lecture hall, where the new students were buzzing with excited chatter. Only our guy, Beck Eon was holding his head in frustration, thinking to himself, I'm going to lose my mind. I've been transferred to a place full of antisocial freaks. Just then, some whispers caught Beck Eon's attention. How did that guy even get in here? No idea. I'm dying to know, though. The new students continued to gossip. Did you hear? Our parents protested and demanded to know why he was admitted to S-Class. The only answer they got was that Beck Eon is qualified to be in S-Class. For real? That's a non-answer. Hearing this, Beck Eon could only laugh. Looks like I'm the one being ostracized, he thought. He stretched nonchalantly. They've worked their butts off since they were little, and then some idiot like me suddenly gets to sit among them. Of course they're going to be annoyed, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's class gets reassigned based on their performance after each exam. At this point, Beck Eon wore a profound expression. And S-Class is no exception. Of course, there are always a few cases of students getting demoted. Suddenly, he remembered something. Now that I think of it, there was a student from A-Class who later got promoted to S-Class. I'll find them later, Beck Eon observed. This Magic Academy is really something else. Every time I think that these game characters are right here in front of me, in a few years, most of the students in this class will be world famous, and about 5 of them will likely betray the world of magic. At that, Beck Eon looked over at him. Ma Yu-seong is one of them. Then Beck Eon turned his gaze toward Flame. He thought, it would be great if Flame could prevent that from happening. Just as he was thinking this, Professor Lee Han-wol opened the door and walked in, saying, "Everyone, take your seats." Beck Eon was surprised. Professor Lee Han-wol began his introduction. "It's a pleasure to meet you all. Perhaps some of you students already know who I am, but I will introduce myself nonetheless." His face was stern. "I am the professor for S-Class, Lee Han-wol." The new students couldn't hide their excitement and began to whisper, "That's the famous Professor Lee Han-wol. The number of dark mages he's hunted is in the 4 digits, right?" The new students continued to whisper. "They call the professor a 7th-rank magic warrior. He's on a completely different level." Just then, the whispering was cut short by the professor's reminder. "Everyone quiet down." The professor said, "It seems we have a room full of talented students here and one special admission student as well." Then, he continued, "As you know, this academy is a place where we train battle mages. As magic warriors, you all will go through a rigorous secondary education. Over the next 3 years, I don't expect all of you to keep up. However, I do expect you to show me your best efforts during that time." Lee Han-wol asked in a low voice, "Are there any questions?" No one raised a hand. A satisfied expression appeared on the professor's face. "Good. In that case, let's begin class." Before he could finish the sentence, the door burst open. Hong Bijin was standing outside, a red mark still visible on one of her cheeks. Seeing this, Beck Eon wondered, Hong Bijin? The one who's more of a stickler for the rules than anyone, is late? Seeing Hong Bijin talking with the professor made him even more curious. "What's going on?" Beck Eon took out his glasses. "I'll have to use the magpie glass to check." Just then, information about Hong Bijin appeared. Hong Bijin, a Dolabit, villain, fire mage, likes red ginseng candy, occasionally gets burned, only drinks espresso brewed in the Acalia style, has a wicked mother, guaranteed to die. He stared at the system window. It was still the same. Beck Eon thought, guaranteed to die. He looked back at Hong Bijin. If Ice died because of Flame, then Hong Bijin will die because of both Flame and Ice. Just then, a crimson notification window appeared. You could say this is the inescapable fate of a villain. Beck Eon took off his glasses. If I could, I'd help her. But in my current situation, I can't help anyone. Lee Han-won said to her, "Student, return to your seat." Suddenly, Beck Eon was lost in thought again. It's awful that I can't do anything but keep my distance. Suddenly, Beck Eon froze. Huh? When did Hong Bijin get here? She was staring intently at Beck Eon. He tensed up. Huh? Hong Bijin pulled out a chair and sat down next to him. His mind was suddenly filled with suspicion. What is going on? It feels like everything has changed from the very beginning. On the podium, Professor Lee Han-won spoke with a stern expression. "All right, before class begins, we will hold an inheritance ceremony for the wands." "That you students will be using," his voice echoed through the classroom. "Class S and Class A will hold the ceremony together. As for the details," Beck Eon muttered to himself, "the inheritance ceremony. It's a bit of a hassle, but I'm actually looking forward to it. There are 2 major events at Stella Academy. One is the Soulmate Covenant ceremony, and the other is the inheritance ceremony. For a prestigious academy like Stella, the inheritance ceremony holds a particularly special significance. The scene changes to the ceremony. Professor Lee Han-won asked, "Is everyone present?" He continued, "Magic staves from the lowest rank to the high intermediate rank have all been prepared here." Everyone listened attentively. "Your task is to approach the staff you like and take it." The professor added a reminder. "The procedure for changing your staff is extremely complicated. I expect all of you to choose very carefully." even though he says that. Beck Eon thought. In reality, we're not the ones choosing the staves. It's the other way around. In the world of Ever, magic staves only react to the person they acknowledge. They create a resonance effect. This means that no matter how much someone wants to, they can't use a high-level staff, he thought as he started walking. Beck Eon continued to walk, but his mind was filled with uncertainty. Still, I have no idea which one I should choose. He recalled a memory. Before, I would have just picked an S-rank staff without a second thought, but now that I'm in Class S, I have to think this through carefully. Beck Eon gazed at the magic staves. What kind of wand would suit my current position best, he wondered. Magic implements are divided into two types, short wands and longer staves. Wands are typically used by the knight class, those who use fast, continuous magic. In contrast, staves are used by the bishop class, those who focus on a single, powerful strike and require more casting time. But his train of thought was suddenly interrupted by the chatter of the new students. Hey, which one do you think he'll pick? Beck Eon glanced at the whispering crowd. Since he's in Class S, he probably won't have any trouble with resonance, huh? Beck Eon paid them no mind. Whatever, he thought. Say whatever you want. But just then he heard a voice call out to him. Hey! Beck Eon was taken aback. Huh? Who are you? He asked. The stranger replied with a sneer. Me? I'm Uslek. Who's that? Beck Eon wondered. I've never heard that name before. Then Beck Eon said, Okay, I know, so what? Uslek asked, So which staff are you going to pick? Hearing this, Beck Eon replied, I'll just pick one at random. Uslek put on a condescending expression. You should choose one that's suitable for a commoner like you. Beck Eon seemed slightly surprised to hear that. Uslek continued his provocation. Don't cause a scene and bother the professors. Beck Eon calmly walked past him. Yeah, you try not to cause any trouble yourself, all right? Uslek's face flushed red. You bastard! He yelled, continuing to press him. Are you trying to pick a fight with me? Beck Eon found this incredibly annoying. He took out his glasses. So noisy. In front of him, an information panel appeared. Uslek Sepp Bieland, son of Marcus Sepp Bieland, follower of Prince Jeremy. Third-rate bully. He put his glasses away, looking slightly disappointed. Is that all the info I get? Beck Eon looked at him and sighed. Nothing special, huh? Uslek pointed toward a magic staff. See that one? That's the one I'm choosing. You'd better watch closely. Beck Eon stared intently at the staff. That magic staff was... Beck Eon was stunned. The Edmuri Etwemiri? He continued his assessment. That must be the highest-ranked staff here. High intermediate grade. A high intermediate staff is typically used by magic warriors, but no matter how talented you are, a low intermediate staff is already the limit for a student. Beck Eon concluded, even professional magic warriors can rarely handle a low intermediate staff. Besides the Edmuri Etwemiri, there's one other high intermediate staff here. It's mostly just for show. Who could possibly wield it? Then Professor Lee Hanwan's voice rang out. Students, please stand directly in front of the staff you have chosen. Haegun Ryang had already made his choice, as had Jeremy Scalvin, and Hong Bijin had also finished choosing. But suddenly, next to Beck Eon, a brilliant light erupted. The freshmen who saw it were utterly stunned, letting out gasps of amazement. Isn't the wand that Huan chose the Hayden Amakotan? That's a mid-grade wand. Prince Scalvin got a mid-grade wand, too. And after him, lights kept shining. Princess Hong, Beyonce, John, CEO Victor LaHaven. They all also got mid-grade wands. Just how many people got mid-grade wands? Usually only certified mages can even use them. Plenty of people were muttering about how crazy this year is. Lex ground his teeth. Damn it! He roared in anger. Just you wait! I'll do it too! Then Lex walked away. The crowd's chatter shifted to him. Oh, isn't that Lex? People started murmuring about him again. Do you think he can get a high mid-grade wand? Standing before the wand he'd chosen, Lex smirked confidently, thinking, watch closely. I'll show you all what real S-class talent looks like. Then he gripped the wand tightly. Suddenly, a powerful beam of light shot out, with lightning crackling throughout the room. From a distance, Beck Eon also felt the intense energy. Just as I predicted, he said slowly. He failed. Sure enough, Lex had collapsed to the ground. He ground his teeth, unable to accept it. The people around him started to whisper, Oh my God, it looks like he's seriously injured. Hey, someone get a professor, quick! Beck Eon mused, I guess a high mid-grade wand is just unattainable. You should just give up, he mumbled. Just then, Uslek saw someone approaching and stammered, Hey, stop! But Ma Yusheng just continued humming. Beck Yusheng looked toward Ma Yusheng. The owner of that wand has already been decided. He looked majestic, with an arrogant face and red eyes that made him stand out even more. His boastful demeanor made everyone whisper. It was Ma Yusheng. Is he going to try and take that wand? He gently touched the wand. They were surprised. I can't believe he could actually claim the Edmuri Edamiri. And yet, Ma Yusheng was already gripping the wand firmly in his hand. A brilliant light quickly spread everywhere. It made Beck Eon gasp in astonishment. Ma Yuseong's face showed clear satisfaction as he admired the wand. The crowd was stunned. Impossible. A new student actually managed to obtain such a high-grade artifact. How could this be? They couldn't believe it. Beck Eon sighed. It's just as I expected. He looked at him. Now, even more people will know just how talented he is. Ma Yuseong keenly noticed Beck Eon standing there, stunned and confused. He then smiled at him. Beck Eon was speechless, thinking to himself, what the hell, is he crazy? He was immediately reminded of a certain girl. After all, Flame already possesses a wand of a similar grade. The Teravan. In Beck Eon's mind, an image of Flame appeared. However, this could be where their paths diverge. If Flame successfully obtains the Teravan, he recalled the plot. Ma Yuseong will see her talent and become interested in her. That would open the Ma Yusheng route. But if she chooses a different wand, it will open a completely different route. Beck Eon thought about his next plan. I need to make use of a Flame to get Ma Yusheng on my side. He suddenly saw Flame walking by. Ah, there she is. Flame was staring intently at a wand. Beck Eon was very serious. The Teravan is over there. The closer she got to the wand, the more anxious and curious he became. He thought to himself, what are you going to do, Flame? As she moved nearer to the wand, he urged her on in his mind. That's right, take the Teravan. Beck Eon waited in anticipation. Then Ma Yuseong will get interested in Flame, he continued to assume, and will have a much higher chance of reaching a happy ending. But she just walked right past the wand, leaving Beck Eon stunned. Huh? He watched her ignore it, only able to think, what? She doesn't like the Teravan? Beck Eon's jaw dropped. What is happening? Doesn't she know what it is? Does she not have enough information about it? How is that possible? Flame was still searching for her own wand. He thought to himself, this is terrible, no matter how you look at it. Flame is supposed to be the main heroine. She should be able to resonate with all the wands. Beck Eon ground his teeth. What if she ends up choosing some weird-ass wand? Then we'll miss out on another good route. He straightened his posture, preparing to use magic. A golden light began to emanate from his body. At this point, Beck Eon made up his mind. I have no choice but to push the Teravan towards her. Beck Eon aimed right behind Flame. He used Flash Step and appeared directly behind her. Flame seemed to realize something was there. She jumped, exclaiming, Huh? Since when? Beck Eon forced a bright smile and began to speak. I was just wondering which wand you were going to choose. Why would you want to know that? She immediately replied. Beck Eon had to make up an excuse. I just wanted to help. You looked a little lost. Flame responded indifferently. It has nothing to do with you. She turned to leave. Hey! Surprised, Beck Eon tried to stop her, blurting out, He stammered, Wait! Beck Eon scratched his face. Something was strange. An image of her and her friends suddenly appeared in his mind. Flame is supposed to be friendly with everyone. She's an extrovert, so why is she being so cold? Yusan, full of determination. No, I can't just give up this easily. My life depends on this. Hey, wait, I'm getting really stressed out here. I just wanted to help you pick one. Flem glared at him angrily. Mind your own business. But Beck Yusan was persistent. But I feel like there's a staff here that would really suit you. She grew more and more impatient. Flem yelled in his face, What the hell do you know about staffs? Yusan could only force a smile. What the hell? Did I do something wrong? Or maybe she doesn't care about support items? He continued, I've heard a lot about you. He pointed towards the staff. Do you think you have what it takes to master that one over there? Flem looked over at the staff and exclaimed, Teravan! Beck Yusan smiled. That's the one? He was surprised. Huh? A look of fear crossed Beck Eon's face. What's that noise? Suddenly, something rushed towards him at high speed. His eyes widened in fear. Beck Eon slowly opened his eyes to see... Ugh! In his hand was the Teravan staff, but he hadn't realized it yet. That scared the hell out of me. Beck Eon looked at the staff, confused. He was completely shocked. Beck Eon stammered, Why is it in my hand? Why is it in? Flem is the one who should have it! Beck Eon cursed under his breath. Damn it! He stammered, Beck Eon tried to call out to Flem, but her face was ice cold. Flem replied with a dangerous smile. Why? Eon was terrified. It's nothing, he worried to himself. I'm screwed. I'm so screwed. And later that afternoon, after class, the students began to head out. As Flem was walking back to the dorms with her books, she overheard some gossip. Hey, did you hear? Flem looked at them. They were still chatting cheerfully. This year, 2 students successfully obtained 2 high-grade magical staffs. Oh, really? In the past, only 5 people have ever managed to do that. So now there are 2 more? A boy said. But the weird thing is, one of those 2 students only used Blink during the entire magic exam. The other friend looked surprised. Huh? Blink is a basic magic spell. How is that even possible? My parents told me that Blink is trash magic. He was shocked. There must be some kind of mistake, right? Hearing this, Flem remained silent. A while later, at the Academy's self-study hall, the afternoon sun was beginning to fade, its light peeking through the windows and down the hallway. Flem sighed as she walked, muttering, finally, some peace and quiet. She thought back to the students' words from that morning. That's all they've been talking about today. Everywhere I've gone, the news about 2 students getting high-grade staffs has spread so fast. But I just don't get it. Flem recalled the moment Beck Eon got the staff. She was so surprised. No way! He got the Teravan? Just who is that guy? Beck Eon was completely bewildered. I read the original novel 3 times before I came here, but the name Beck Eon never appeared even once. But Flem couldn't stay calm. And it said no one else could possibly claim Teravan, yet he resonated with it so easily. Flem gritted her teeth. It's like an image of him holding the staff with a sinister smile flashed in her mind, making her think, he's trying to show off to me. Flem shook her head in annoyance, trying to push the thought away. Why am I even thinking about this stuff? Just then, a voice called out from behind her. Hey, Flem! Some classmates saw her and asked cheerfully, Are you heading to self-study too? Hearing them, Flem turned around and gave them a gentle smile. She said cheerfully, You guys, what do you take me for, a bookworm? The blonde girl immediately replied, No, it's just that you always say you have nothing better to do, so you study. Flem quickly denied it. That's not it at all. Her brown-haired friend tilted her head, confused. But Flem, why do you always call us you guys like we're little kids? We're the same age. Hearing that, Flem got flustered. Oh, it's just a habit. I was always treated like an adult where I used to live, she said with a smile, but inside her mind was in turmoil. I'm just now realizing that I'm inside a novel, so there's no way I can act like a child. Just then a voice cut through her thoughts. So, are you planning to study alone again today? Flem looked at the red-haired girl who had spoken. She tried to remember. That's Jackie, right? Flem thought to herself, why is her style kind of like mine? She quickly waved her hands. No, not at all. There's a supplementary meeting about to start, so I was heading there. Flem smiled. Anyway, I've got to go. Seeing this, the others said their goodbyes. Okay. Let's get coffee next time, okay? Flame left, but not without looking back to say goodbye. As she walked down the hallway, she thought, girls at this age... Flame was muttering to herself, so she wasn't paying attention to what was in front of her. It's pretty tough being a student at this age. She accidentally bumped hard into something. It turned out to be a male student. Flame rubbed her head in pain. When the boy recognized her, he called out, Flame? She looked up to see Hyun Ryong. He immediately asked with concern, Are you okay? Flame nodded. I'm fine. But Hyun Ryong still noticed something was off. He asked gently, You don't look so good. Is something wrong? Flame was surprised. Was he worried about her? But she still said, No, it's nothing. Hyun Ryong asked again, Is that so? Are you on your way to self-study? She also asked, What about you? Are you heading to the Class S special training building again? Hyun Ryong looked at Flame with a determined expression. You can't get lazy with your daily training. The two of them bantered back and forth. You're not being very honest. You shouldn't say that. Oh, really? As they were talking, they both suddenly fell silent. Hwan Ryong stared intently at Flame, confusing her. Then, he suddenly broke into a strange, bright smile. Then he reached out his hand as if to brush her hair, startling Flame. Hwan Ryong looked at her gently. "Well, see you later." Then he turned and walked away, leaving Flame completely bewildered. How cheesy, she thought. Then Flame turned to leave and suddenly saw someone. Jackie was standing by the door, staring intently at Flame. Flame was confused. "Jackie?" She was about to wave hello, but before she could even call out, Jackie had already run off. She stood there stunned. "Well, whatever." Flame started walking again. "This isn't the time for this." After a while, she arrived at the classroom in the self-study building. She stood in front of the door, thinking. A special supplementary meeting. Flame recalled that according to the original novel, Yeseo and Hong Bijin would be attending this conference. It's very important to see the heroine and the villain confront each other. With that thought, Flame pushed the door open and entered the classroom. She walked in slowly, scanning the people inside. She thought to herself, all the important characters are here. Next, she looked up to the podium. Kai seemed rather flustered. Flame observed that the person in charge was Kai from Class A. He looked like he had just rushed over from somewhere. Flame walked to her seat. This was a supplementary session for students who needed to improve their grades. She noticed that the majority of attendees were from Class S. As soon as she sat down, Flame glanced over and noticed someone below her. She was quite surprised. Ma Yusheng is here too? Ma Yusheng, the one who could be considered the male lead of this world. He's very interested in Beck Eon. Flame looked at Beck Eon. This is definitely not a coincidence. And Beck Eon didn't do anything other than solve the 3 hell questions. She clenched her fists. From the very beginning, Beck Eon knew that if he solved those questions, he would get into Class S. Flame was bewildered, pressing her lips together in thought as a suspicion suddenly formed in her mind. Her gaze darkened, revealing a deep unease. If Beck Eon really knew everything beforehand and acted like that, then he's truly dangerous. As she thought this, she stared intently at his tranquil face. At that moment, Yuseon let out a tired sigh. He looked unhappy and seemed to be avoiding Yuseong's radiant smile, silently wishing someone would please just drag the guy away. Yuseong smiled brightly and asked curiously, "Yuseon, what are you doing here? You don't really need to listen to this stuff. Is there some special reason?" Yuseo turned and replied with a forced laugh, "Ha ha, not at all." Inwardly, he thought, it's because my scores are so damn low that I have to attend this class. Yuseon narrowed his eyes, staring at Yuseong. Seeing him grinning so cheerfully at him, he was surprised. Why has this guy suddenly taken an interest in me? Suddenly, a voice rang out, cutting through the chatter. "That's enough chatting, isn't it?" The guy standing at the front began the meeting. "Today we will be discussing the problems from the ranking evaluation test." He added, "As you all know, this test and has a section so difficult that people call it the 3 hell questions." Everyone listened attentively. Seeing Suovider and a few other brilliant students, he gave a forced smile and said, "And I will now proceed to explain them." Inwardly, he cursed, "Damn it, why did those guys have to show up? I was just planning on boosting my own reputation by helping these idiot nobles." Suddenly, something caught Kai's attention. Looking at Yuseon's solemn expression, Kai told himself, "No, this is my chance. I heard Yuseon was the one with the lowest score on the entrance exam." He smiled slyly, his mind already made up. "In that case, I'll show him just how much better I am." Kai picked up a book and began presenting on the blackboard. "First off, this is the method I use to solve them." As he wrote, he explained, "This is actually a type of trick question. It's designed to mislead you into giving the wrong answer." The students below diligently took notes. Kei continued his lecture just like that. Yuseong smiled, observing Yuseon's diligent posture. Then he spoke up, asking a question that made Yuseon look up. "What are your thoughts on it? Do you think what he's doing is right?" Yuseon turned to see Yusheng's calm face and, feeling suspicious, said, "What the hell are you talking about? Asking if I think he's right? I don't even get what he's teaching up there. And what's with these 3 hellish questions anyway?" He didn't answer, just turned away dejectedly, lost in thought. Still, honesty is a good virtue. Yuseon answered casually, "No, I don't know." Hearing this from the podium, Kai immediately froze. It seems Yusin spoke too loudly, causing his classmates to hear and start whispering. What? That's Yusin, one student said. Is he saying Kai is wrong? Kai's eyes widened, and he gritted his teeth in anger. Seeing everyone looking at him, Yusin glanced around confusedly. Huh? Why is everyone looking at me? Kai furiously crushed the piece of chalk in his hand. Then his voice rang out, questioning. Am I wrong? Hearing this, Yusin froze, staring up in shock. He smirked. Well then, Yusin. Kai stared him down, his voice a challenge. Why don't you come down here and help everyone solve it? He fell silent, flustered. Yusan's face went pale as he thought in shock. What is he saying? What the hell is happening now? Suddenly he noticed Yuxiang beside him. He saw his radiant smile, a thumbs up, and heard his whisper, You can do it, Yusan. He's definitely doing this on purpose, he thought angrily. He sighed and walked up to the podium. Fine, whatever. I just have to wing it, right? Flame watched him intently from above, and so did Hong Bijin. He picked up the chalk and began to write on the blackboard. Looking at the words on the board, Yusan was lost in thought. 3 hellish questions, huh? To Yusan, these questions were more like word puzzles. In his mind, he pictured the image from the question. For example, a wizard casting a spell. Oh, Mother Earth, please shed your tears. Afterwards, the amount of dust doubles. Why is that? The answer is very simple, Yusan thought with a smug smile. Are the dust particles crying? Not at all, it's just a state of splitting. Reaching this conclusion, Yusan rubbed his head tiredly. What a ridiculous question. But to them, this is a huge problem. I wonder who came up with this stuff. But then he suddenly looked up. He saw Kai's furious face and thought, that Kai guy is trying to solve this like it's a math problem, something about splitting when it cries or whatever. Looking back at his solution, he had to admit to himself, the method is wrong, but the answer is right. He got pretty lucky, but if he faced another question of the same type, he wouldn't be able to pass. So Yusan turned and said bluntly, I can't really show you how to solve it, but I can tell you where you went wrong. Hearing this answer, Kai was surprised. Huh? He explained, the question refers to the earth, but what if it were water or wind? Yusin asked, would your method still apply then? Stunned, he hesitated and replied, then I would use a different method. Yusan pressed on. In that case, you'd have to use many different methods for the same type of problem. He was stunned, gritting his teeth. Yusan mercilessly exposed the truth. The only reason you got the right answer was pure luck. That's not the answer the person who wrote the question was looking for. Realizing he'd been exposed, Kai stammered, unable to speak. That is... Kai's mood soured, and he stammered in agreement. You're right. For a moment, Yusin felt he had gone too far. I think I just destroyed his confidence. Then he calmly consoled him. Anyway, this part has to... He then read out the solution. Kai immediately took out his notebook to write it down, and the students behind him also began to follow along attentively. At that moment, Flame realized in astonishment that everyone in the room was writing non-stop. She thought in a daze, how is this possible? They're all writing down everything he's saying. Even the 2 most talented girls were listening quietly. Iso and Hong Bijin should have been part of the debate, but now both were focused on the solution. Flame felt a growing sense of unease. Is this okay? As the sky turned west, Yuxiang packed up his books, waved, and smiled at Yusan. See you tomorrow, Yusan. He kept that radiant, blooming smile on his face until he left. Yusan smiled and waved back as he left. Then he buried his face in his hands in frustration. Ah, damn it! If I get involved with a devil like my Yuxiang, what's see you tomorrow? I don't want to see you again for the rest of my life. Yusan sighed helplessly, looking at his empty hand. He thought, it might be because of the phone. He walked on, his mind full of worries. I can't use it anymore, but I've accidentally attracted Ma Yuxiang's attention. I don't get why he keeps getting close to me. Before, besides Flame, no one else used it. Thinking about this, Yusin suddenly saw Hong Bijin standing in front of the classroom door. She was standing there dazedly, as if waiting for someone. Seeing her, he suddenly thought, isn't that Hong Bijin? Looks like she's waiting for someone. But then he ignored her and started to walk away. None of my business, I'm getting out of here. Suddenly, she called out, Yusan! He froze. She slowly approached him and said coldly, Yusan, I want to ask you something. He was completely baffled. Hong Bijin want us to ask me something? He opened his mouth to ask, What is it? She crossed her arms and demanded, Why didn't you explain the solution earlier? At her words, he froze, completely speechless. It's not that I didn't want to explain. I couldn't. How am I supposed to explain a riddle that makes no sense, he thought. It seems she's gotten the wrong idea. Tilting his head and rubbing his neck, he replied, There's just nothing to explain. Hong Bijin was silent for a moment. Finally, appearing to understand, she replied, I see. With her arms crossed, she looked unhappy and said reproachfully, You just didn't want to reveal your secret, right? Her words shocked him. Huh? Of course not. Then she suddenly proposed, Let's make a trade. Yusan asked blankly, A what? She calmly began, I will pay you a fair price. She then added, So explain everything that's going on in that head of yours. His mood plummeted, his expression becoming awkward and flustered. Huh? Inside the library, yellow lights cast a listless glow as Yusan and Hong Bijin sat down at a table. They looked at the papers spread out before them. Yusan, wearing his glasses, picked up the 3 sheets and asked quizzically, I really don't understand why you'd pay to have me explain 3 questions from the placement test. Hong Bijin just said, I have my reasons. Just start talking. He replied wearily, Yes, Your Highness. As he examined them closely, he voiced his confusion. But you only got these 3 questions wrong. Aren't you embarrassed to ask me for help? The guy who got every other question wrong? She replied nonchalantly, Not in the slightest. The only thing I'm ashamed of is that I still don't understand the solutions to those problems. As long as I can find the answer, I'll do anything, she said calmly. Yusan looked directly at her, thinking to himself, a model student through and through. His curiosity piqued, he asked, But why are you asking me? Hearing this, Hong Bijin looked up. Yusan continued as he scanned the test paper. You're a princess. You have plenty of friends. Why not ask them? She hesitated. Well, she then analyzed the current situation. Out of 1,141 candidates, only 3 people correctly answered those 3 hell-level questions, including you. Hearing this, Yusan was stunned into realization. Huh? What did you just say? Hong Bijin shyly tucked a strand of hair away and began, These trick questions. They weren't supposed to have a solution, but Ma Yusong, Flame, and you all managed to do it. It's really been bothering me. Her words sent him reeling, and he started to tremble. Wait, hold on a second. He shot up from his seat, pointed at the paper, and yelled, These 3 questions were just meant to be deceptive tricks? They were fundamentally unsolvable? Hong Bijin calmly replied, Correct. You didn't realize that while you were solving them? He quickly composed himself and slowly sat back down, cursing himself internally. This is crazy. Now I understand why I was placed in Class S. Then a thought struck him, and his mood darkened. And the reason why Flame tried to stop me. Looking at Hong Bijin's curious gaze, he felt completely lost. I don't know the detailed lore of this world, and I certainly didn't know about those trick questions. But Flame is different. From what Yusan understood, she was a transmigrator, someone who had read the entire novel. Even if she didn't know the game's plot, she would have known all of the story's established lore. That would naturally include those 3 deceptive questions. He just thought silently to himself. But because an extra character who wasn't in the original novel appeared, Flame has no choice but to accept Yusan's existence. Yusan was completely baffled. No wonder she acted that way. Seeing his mood swings, Hong Bijin asked, What's wrong? He replied wearily, It's nothing. He frowned pensively for a moment, then reminded her, Don't forget what you said. You'll grant one of my requests if I teach you the solution. She said quietly, I know. Yusan then stated his desire. My request is simple. Turn my magic staff into a magic sword. He then explained his reasoning. It's a simple request because the blacksmiths in your kingdom can do it easily. This surprised her. But only low-rank mercenaries use that kind of weapon. Why would a mage like you use one? He nodded, leisurely crossing his arms and saying, It just suits my taste. I'm not about to tell her it's because of my handicap, he thought. Then, feigning impatience, Yusan asked, So can you do it? Hong Bijin thought in silence for a moment, then agreed. Of course. A task like that is easy as pie. Internally, he cheered, Perfect. He reached out and pointed to a line on the test paper. All right, I'll start by telling you how to solve this one. Then, Yusan nonchalantly began to explain, My method is to change your perspective. Hong Bijin looked down at the paper, confused. Change my perspective? Precisely, he answered. He knew Hong Bijin's weakness well. She used magic in a way that was too textbook. Even holding a staff, she couldn't bring out its full power. That led to her becoming overly reliant on it. She only realizes this in her second year, after a humiliating and crushing defeat at the hands of Flame. Sitting across from her now, Yusen knew what he should do. Right now, I can't reveal too much to her, but I can guide her in the right direction. With that, he leaned in closer to Hong Bijin and began to speak. Do you know about nonsensical quizzes? Beck Eon calmed himself and thought the situation over. Then he asked nonchalantly, Hey Bijin, do you know what a silly question is? Hearing this, Hong Bijin was taken aback, but she misunderstood him. Silly? I think I've heard of it. Beck Eon patiently explained. I'll give you an example. What is between one knee and another knee? Puzzled for a moment, she answered, Behind the knee? Beck Eon immediately shot her down. Wrong! It's the word and, she asked, bewildered. How is that possible? Beck Eon laughed and explained, I asked what is between one knee and another knee, remember? Hearing that, Hong Bijin just sat there, speechless. Then she glared at him with daggers in her eyes. Beck Eon, flustered, tried to calm her down. Hey now, don't look at me like that. He waved his hands and smiled, trying to diffuse the situation. Just calm down and think about the question again. Looking at the red marks on her paper, Beck Eon analyzed. It's clear that there are formulas and methods here you've never seen before. That means you have to solve it. Entirely with your own creativity. But you can't just memorize creativity, right? His words left Hong Bijin stunned, as if she had realized something. She lowered her gaze, then replied faintly, I don't know. Getting the answer he expected, Beck Eon smiled comfortably. Then he added, Of course, learning all those techniques and spells is very important. This caught Hong Bijin's attention. He continued, But for a mage, the most important thing, especially in your current situation, is that you need to see the world from a perspective that goes far beyond your imagination. Magic can grow from the smallest of changes. He then bluntly pointed out her weakness. But you only think about things as you've seen them. Beck Eon reminded her, spells aren't just meant to be memorized and then thrown away. He stated calmly, You might be better than me at analytical thinking and judgment. At this point, he pointed out Hong Bijin's shortcoming. But you lack the most important quality for a mage, creativity. At that moment, her hands, hidden under the table, began to tremble slightly. A dark aura emanated from her. Beck Eon started to sweat, panicked. He thought, Oh God, the look on her face is terrifying. He scratched his head, forcing a smile as he spoke. You understand everything I've said, right? Even though it's a little complicated. By now, Hong Bijin's mood had improved. She looked up and replied, Of course. He kept that smile on his face while mentally kicking himself. Great. I have no idea what I'm even talking about. Then he said cheerfully, I'm glad you understand. Now then, let's begin. At this point, Beck Eon posed a question. What do you call a fly without wings? It can move, but people say it can't fly. Hong Bijin was stumped, not knowing how to answer. She repeated the question to herself. What do you call a fly without wings? Even though it can move. Unable to figure it out, Hong Bijin gave up. I don't know. Beck Eon then asked another question. The answer is a walk. Okay, next, why is a bed so lazy? She answered awkwardly, I don't know. He explained, because it's always lying down on the job. Then another question. What would happen if rock, paper, and scissors had a race? She was growing frustrated, repeating her answer mechanically. I don't know. He cheerfully explained, rock would roll away, but paper and scissors are stationary. Get it? They wouldn't move because they're stationary. Hong Bijin began to tremble all over, which made Beck Eon a little uneasy. She frowned, her lips pressed tightly together, holding back her anger. Suddenly, Hong Bijin shot up from her seat. Realizing he'd pushed her a bit too far, his expression froze. He thought, oh crap, she could explode at any second. But to help Hong Bijin have a breakthrough, Beck Eon had to ask one more. So what would a cloud say to the sea? He stammered, trying to finish. What could a cloud possibly say to the sea? As the raindrops are falling? Seeing her remain silent, his heart was in turmoil. Please, please. To his surprise, Hong Bijin said, "My tears greet the ocean." Hearing the answer, he froze for a second. "Okay. Oh." Then he replied happily, "You got it right." Realizing she'd guessed correctly, she broke into a radiant smile. Beck Eon also took notice. "Whoa. This is the first time I've ever seen her smile, in the game or in real life." He rested his chin on his hand, chuckling as he praised her. "Just as expected of a princess. Your creativity is far beyond that of ordinary people." Hearing the compliment, Hong Bijin blushed with embarrassment and quickly changed the subject. "All right, that's enough. Next question." Seeing her adorable reaction, he was delighted and continued to pose more trick questions. The next one is, as night fell upon the ancient academy, the students began to leave their classes. Beck Eon also strode away. His face was etched with fatigue, dark circles visible under his eyes. He let out a weary sigh. "I just spent 3 hours asking Hong Bijin those silly questions." The memory of the ridiculousness he'd just been through flooded his mind. "I can't believe she actually fell for what I was saying," Beck Eon thought, staring blankly ahead. From what he knew of the beautiful but quiet girl, Hong Bijin was definitely a brilliant mage with a sharp mind. Beck Eon thought to himself as he walked, but her weakness is her rigid way of thinking. Still, exploiting that weakness, even though she's the villain, I still feel a little guilty. Beck Eon strengthened his resolve. "I have to quickly turn Terry 1 into a magic sword. Only then can I get other things done. It's not like I really have any other choice." He looked up at the brightly lit houses in the dark night and told himself, "That's enough thinking for now. I need to hurry up and buy the book I need." Soon after, Beck Eon ran to a deserted street. He looked around and asked himself, "Is it around here? I don't quite remember." Suddenly, he looked up. He'd found the place he was looking for. Beck Eon cheered joyfully. "There it is!" Outside, the sky had begun to darken. Below was this old, dilapidated house. The inside of the house was filled with cobwebs. Next to them was a bookshelf, with the books arranged in neat rows. He stepped inside carefully, observing the place. It's quite old. A second later, Beck Eon glanced over at the shop owner sitting below. They greeted each other with a nod. But I know this bookstore owner has a strange habit. He pretends to be asleep while observing his customers. The man hides his face under a stern hat, witnessing every action of those who enter. A thought crossed his mind. In this unknown, nameless bookstore, the notes of Maella, the student who graduated as valedictorian from Stella Academy 10 years ago, the treasure she wrote about, is hidden here. Imagine when the system appears, a screen will pop up with a button from the game asking, "Will you study this lesson? Yes or no?" But in real life, I'll need that notebook for the class. On top of that, the rate of score increase differs depending on the textbook. Images of shimmering books appeared. He looked at the overflowing stacks of books on the shelves and thought, "At first I bought books from famous bookstores, but then I discovered that rare books are in bookstores with no signs." Beck Eon walked around the shelves, examining every spot. "If I can take the magic engineering class based on Maella's notes, I'll definitely get a perfect score." Walking to a row of books, he told himself, "Well, just using the titmouse glasses would be enough to get a perfect score, but I wouldn't be able to develop my skills that way." Then suddenly, Beck Eon spotted something. He stopped in his tracks. A small blue book at the end of the row caught his eye. This is it. As Beck Eon stepped forward and reached out to grab the book, he accidentally touched someone else's hand, who was also reaching for it. Slightly startled, he turned his head to look at the person. And the owner of that hand was Isel. She was holding a book, looking at him with a puzzled expression. Hearing him, she asked with a mix of confusion and curiosity, "You know me?" Beck Eon replied bluntly, "Of course. You're pretty famous, you know." Just then, Isel recognized him too. She quickly replied, "I remember now. You're in the supplementary group. Your name is Beck Eon, right?" Hearing her words, he was surprised and thought, "Huh? She doesn't remember what happened on the first day at the academy?" Suddenly, Isel brought up the day he solved the problem. She remarked, "That was a great debate, but I was a little disappointed you didn't explain everything." Hearing that, he suddenly remembered. Thinking back, Isel couldn't solve that question either. After saying that, she turned to leave, leaving only one sentence behind. "Anyway, it was nice meeting you." Beck Eon reached for the blue book, but his eyes were glued to her retreating back. Watching her disappear from view, He sighed in relief. Thank goodness she didn't take it. Seeing her go to another shelf to browse, he wondered quietly. But why is she here? Isel picked up another book, but after looking at the expensive price, she let out a sigh and put it back in its place. Phew, he caught this action of hers. He was a bit confused, thinking, what was that about? A series of thoughts came to him. In reality, this bookstore mostly sells old books, so the students who come here are usually poor students. Like me. He glanced over to where Isel was standing. Someone from a fallen family like Isel, who has lost everything, would surely have no other choice but to come here. Her father must have been killed by those dark mages. The person who supported her was just gone. Thinking about this, Beck Eon felt a pang of pity for her. It's so sad. A princess like her has to worry about the price of a single book because she doesn't have much money. Beck Eon recalled the contents of the original novel and thought, furthermore, Isel also had a tragic ending in the original novel. She dies before Flame, the protagonist of this world. Just one small flame destroyed the young girl's life. You could say the most unfortunate character in this game is Isel. Seeing him looking at her, she seemed a bit bewildered. Finished, Beck Eon carried a stack of books to the counter and placed them on the desk. He said with a bright smile to the shop owner, I'd like to pay for these, please. Seeing this, the owner was a bit surprised. All of these? This boy is stronger than he looks. Noticing Isel's gaze, he smiled and glanced at her. Isel stood beside him, looking down, clearly embarrassed. At that moment, Beck Eon spoke up. What's wrong? She stammered in reply, You're just like... it looks like you've chosen some interesting books. Beck Eon gave a forced smile, thinking, was she about to curse me out? Looking at the titles on the covers, he asked curiously, for example? Isel quickly answered, all of them? You even read books on high-level sealing magic? Isel glanced at them and asked attentively, sealing theory is an ancient magic that requires an artifact, so in the modern world where alchemy and magic engineering aren't very developed, this magic is rarely used. Hearing this, Beck Eon calmly replied, oh, this? It's true, it's a magic few people use. She lowered her gaze and said, so you already knew. A second later, he added another sentence. That's exactly why I chose it. Hearing this answer, her eyes widened in surprise. Isel quickly turned to him and asked, what? Holding the stack of paid books, he gave a scheming smile and replied, everyone thinks like you do. That's why I can get higher scores in class. With that, Beck Eon left. Well, I'll be going now. Leaving Iso behind with a bewildered expression, Beck Eon walked away with a stack of books. He smiled to himself. Just as Iso said, very few people are willing to study seal theory. But, because of that, I can spend less time on it and still get a high score compared to other subjects. This made him feel more confident. With this, I'll pass this semester easily. Iso was silent, her eyes following his retreating back. Until the morning of the second day, sunlight gradually shone down on the academy. In the hallway, she walked, lost in thought about her first period class, nihilism. In her mind, she had already calculated which subjects were easy to score in. But this subject is still easy to get a high grade in, so it should be fine. The moment she arrived at the classroom, she saw that it was packed. The students inside were all chatting with each other. You're taking nihilism too? The girl next to her replied, yeah, but the situation doesn't look too good. I signed up for this class. Because everyone said it was an easy A. Looks like everyone else knew that too. All the top students signed up for this class. Iso quietly found a seat for herself. The students next to her continued their conversation. I'm doomed. Seeing the packed classroom, she could only sigh in defeat. It's hopeless. I'll just have to try my best in my other subjects. After a while, the teacher finished today's lecture and told the class is dismissed. Everyone slowly started to leave. I'm so hungry. Iso walked out with a gloomy expression. Ahead of her, a few other students were chatting lively. What should we get for lunch? Let's just decide when we get to the cafeteria. Knowing the path ahead was getting steeper, Iso sighed as she walked. This is going to be a problem. If there are too many people in the classes I registered for, it'll be hard to get the scholarship. Suddenly, her stomach growled. She blushed in embarrassment and clutched the book in her hands tighter. Looking at the meal card in her hand, she thought hesitantly, should I go get something to eat first? As Iso walked, she tried to calculate carefully. Let's see, since I only have 60 meal tickets for this semester, I should probably just eat bread today. Suddenly, her gaze drifted to a nearby classroom. Iso caught sight of a familiar figure, that person. Beck Eon was wearing a pair of glasses, diligently looking up at the board. Isn't that Beck Eon? As Iso was passing a classroom, she happened to spot the familiar figure. It was him. It was none other than Beck Eon. Stunned, she watched him, wondering to herself, what's he doing here? Seeing what was on the board, she suddenly understood. Ah, it's lecture theory. This classroom was the complete opposite of hers. Below, there were only a few scattered students. Iso thought to herself, but it seems like very few people take this. The students in here are all the ones with bad grades. Before leaving, Iso hesitated for a moment. This subject will probably be discontinued soon anyway. She thought to herself as she imagined it, if I sign up for this class, I could raise my grades without much effort. She hugged the book to her chest, her body trembling slightly. And I'd have more time to study for other subjects. Then I could get the scholarship money. Iso looked up, a glint of determination in her eyes as she watched his focused figure. She guessed, Beck Eon. Did he know beforehand that this subject was an easy grade? Iso suddenly remembered him acting like a prophet. Don't tell me he's calculated every single move that would benefit him? Iso's gaze on him grew more serious, and just like that, she left. Iso comforted herself. It's all right, there's no way. I'm just overthinking things. It must be a coincidence. Outside, the gentle morning sun softly illuminated everything. The teacher at the podium continued the lesson. You all must know about the origin of magic. The professor was a researcher of the divine scribe, Ladian. He began to explain, the white sorcerer, the progenitor, the white sorcerer who spread magic throughout the world, and humans, along with other races, learned how to use magic. He continued to speak about the sorcerer's deeds. He taught the elves nature magic. As he told Ladian's story, an image of the elf race, with the gentle beauty of nature, gradually formed in each student's mind. And to the dwarves, with sharp weapons in hand, he taught material magic so they could forge magnificent weapons, and he taught humanity elemental magic. In the end, he ascended to the heavens. Everyone below was silent. Even Beck Eon stared blankly, thinking about the times to come. How in the world did I get through these 3 years? He wrote miserably in his notebook. Having to go back to school at this age is sheer torture. I remember how I used to just press the skip button to get past this part, Beck Eon thought, sighing in frustration, but this class is actually pretty important. I might be able to find a clue about what the true ending is, Beck Eon told himself. But that's just a guess. Suddenly, a thought struck him, and he glanced suspiciously at the person beside him. Has Yisol always been in this class? He was surprised to see her sitting next to him. I don't remember any of the main characters being in this class, but then he thought, whatever. He refocused on the lecture. Humanity's curiosity didn't stop at elemental magic, Ledden said, pointing to a drawing on the board. The mages began to travel across the world, secretly learning the magic of other races. Even so, they weren't satisfied. He then continued, but they could learn no more. The progenitor mage left behind the 12 divine moons and disappeared. He abandoned everything and just left. At this point, he looked down at his students and asked, does anyone know about the 12 divine moons? Yisol spoke up, answering, they are known as the guardian deities who protect the balance of power on the continent. It is said they were scattered across the 6 lands to fulfill their mission, until 1,000 years ago. Ledden raised his staff, agreeing with her. Precisely. They possess special powers to protect the continent, Ledden explained, detailing the structures of the various magics. For example, the divine moon that represents summer, the 6th moon, Crimson Summer, bears a blazing red flame, and it is said that flame never goes out. A dangerous-looking octopus appeared, surrounded by a flow of crimson energy. He then calmly said, if you were to go to the bottom of the Alamanca Sea, you could still see that red flame. So any of you who are curious can go take a look. Upon hearing this, Beck Eon felt a wave of helplessness, silently asking Ledden, are you kidding me, Professor? He looked at Ledden on the podium, remembering his last words. He thought to himself, if any living creature enters the domain of the Sea King Alamanca, they'll fall asleep instantly. Pointing to a flower-like drawing on the board, the professor introduced it. This is Blevian, a giant whirlpool in the middle of the ocean, frozen by the 12th moon, winter solstice. He analyzed further. Each moon has its own unique power, and a miracle will occur if they are all gathered. At this, a student spoke up. And what miracle is that, sir? Placing a hand on his book, Ledin replied nonchalantly, "That, no one knows. They fell into a deep sleep 1,000 years ago." Hearing this, Beck Eon agreed. The professor's right. Beck Eon had fought them before. At least he'd encountered a few of the divine moons while playing the game. But he'd only ever seen 5, and only through limited-time events. Beck Eon remembered the days when he was just glued to his computer screen. It was all thanks to me gathering information from other players in the community. No one has encountered more divine moons than I have. At that moment, Beck Eon's gaze grew strangely profound. If my theory is correct, then the 12 divine moons are connected to the true ending. If no one has found the true ending in 15 years, then the answer must be in content that no one has reached yet, he thought grimly. I only managed to find 5 after risking my life over and over. Then Beck Eon did a quick calculation. But I have no other choice. If I want to witness the true ending, I have to do it all over again at the same time. Elsewhere, someone was attacking a wooden dummy with fire magic. The white-haired teacher spoke up. Power isn't everything. She materialized a magic staff, reminding them all, no matter how powerful your attack, it's useless if you can't hit your target. This was Professor Hong Bijin's fire class. The students took out their magic staves and began to unleash their fire magic. Suddenly, her expression hardened. At that moment, a powerful blast of fire magic shot towards the wooden dummy. A huge explosion erupted on impact, kicking up a cloud of dust and smoke. Bijin calmly observed the situation, but then her eyes widened in shock. As the smoke slowly cleared, the faint silhouette of the wooden dummy was revealed. When all the dust settled, the dummy stood completely unharmed. The students watched in stunned silence. Seeing this, the professor gave a cold assessment. Pathetic. Hong Bijin looked towards the student and called out, "Hong Bijin!" But moments later, Hong Bijin was sitting on a bench, looking dejected. She thought sadly to herself, "I've let Mom down again." Flustered, she sat there wringing her hands. Mom must despise me. Suddenly, someone approached and called out, making her jump slightly. "Princess!" The person standing before her was a swan. She gave a friendly, cheerful smile and asked, "Hong Bijin, are you all right?" After that, the two sat down together. Finding the silence a bit awkward, Aswan broke it with a compliment. "You're incredible, you know." Hearing this, she looked bewildered. "What do you mean?" Aswan, sitting beside her, continued her praise. "Your magic is the same element as mine, but yours is so many times more powerful." Bijin replied flatly, "I can't even hit the target." Aswan smiled brightly, trying to comfort her. "But your magic is absolutely incredible. It looks so cool." Then she added, "Actually, I've been hearing about you ever since I was little." It was then that Hong Bijin remembered. "Oh, that's right. She's a fire elemental, just like me. If I remember correctly, this girl smiling so brightly her eyes are slits. Her name is Aswan." Bijin tried to recall. "I feel like I've heard that name before. That a new genius fire mage of this generation has appeared, one who wields immense magical power." Hong Bijin compared Aswan to herself. "Even so, her magic is nothing compared to mine." At this thought, her expression darkened. In a serious tone, she said, "Your accuracy is quite impressive, too." Her words made Aswan a little uncomfortable. "But if you were to practice more, I wouldn't stand a chance." Hong Bijin suddenly shot to her feet. With a haughty tone, she said, "That's enough of this pathetic chatter." Then, Hong Bijin shot Aswan a somewhat indifferent glance. "In any case, talking to you has made me feel much better." After saying that, she turned her back and walked away, leaving only a goodbye behind. Aswan, looking displeased, lowered her head slightly. When she looked up again, her eyes held a deep, hidden meaning, all traces of her earlier warmth gone. Before long, the afternoon sky began to fade into twilight. The door opened to a room where the potted plants were still lush and green. Stepping inside, she let out a tired sigh. "Ha!" A quiet voice called out, "Princess Beyonce." The person stood formally in the room. Hong Bijin's personal guard, Ayaterin, spoke with an expressionless face, though her voice held a hint of cheer. "Welcome back. The candy and tea are ready." "Please have some tea and a bit of ginseng candy," Terran said. Bijin replied flatly, "Thank you." Then, Terran bowed her head and began her serious report on the weapon modification mission you assigned the other day. "Because the magic staff is of such high quality, they'll be able to forge a high-grade sword. Hearing this, Hong Bijin calmly picked up a piece of candy. Is that so? Eon carefully spoke up. However, there is something a bit strange about it. At this, Bijin raised an eyebrow at her and asked, Strange? She narrowed her eyes and slowly replied, It is. They say the staff continuously and forcefully drains mana from its owner. Hearing this response, Hong Bijin froze. Bijin asked in astonishment, seeming to know nothing about the weapon. Huh? Is it a dark weapon? Eon rested her chin on her hand, pondering for a moment before saying, It's a little different. It resonates with natural energy. Hearing this, Bijin, resting her chin on her hand, immediately refuted it. No way! How can it drain its owner's mana while also resonating with natural energy? Her mind filled with questions, Bijin looked over and asked, Then why is that staff only ranked as high intermediate? Eon, still standing formally to the side, replied, That is precisely why it is ranked high intermediate. These words left Hong Bijin confused. What do you mean? She began to analyze in a cool tone. The staff's primary ability significantly amplifies the user's mana, making it a high-grade weapon or perhaps even higher than that. She then explained further. But because it starts draining mana the moment you hold it, this tool was downgraded to high intermediate. She thought of that ordinary-looking magic staff. To think it possessed such immense magic. She shot to her feet, waving her hand in astonishment as she exclaimed, High grade? How could a student possibly use that? Even Eon found this unusual, saying, I was also quite curious about that. After processing the information, Hong Bijin felt unwell and quickly supported her head, closing her eyes. I knew from the start it wasn't something just anyone could resonate with, but I never thought someone would actually use it, even if they obtained it. Unless that person had an insane amount of mana or none at all. Then she casually shook her head and waved her hand. I don't understand. That commoner will surely figure it out eventually. As she picked up her teacup, she paused and said hesitantly, In any case, he can't be just an ordinary person. By now, the sky had taken on the colors of late afternoon. A few days after the semester began, with the sun hanging high and casting its light everywhere, students attended their classes regularly. Beck Eon sat below, listening silently. He listened intently to the teacher's lecture. Offensive magic requires more detailed application than other types of magic. That is why this mana guidance class is mandatory. The teacher with graying hair who was lecturing was the mana guidance professor, Kalim. Sitting a few tables away was Iso, who was also focusing intently on his lesson and listening to his words. From now on, in your combat matches, you will all learn guidance by focusing on casting and aiming. Kalim picked up a piece of chalk and began to draw a circle. He finished, having drawn a shape like a wheel. He pointed at the drawing, then turned to the students and said, Let's discuss trajectory formulas first. The problem on the board reads as follows. From a distance of 760 meters to the north, Chosu is running south at a speed of 12.6 meters per second. What is the appropriate trajectory and predicted observation distance that Yanghe needs to hit Chosu with water magic? After these words were read, the entire class fell silent. At that moment, a few students sitting behind him whispered back and forth. Of all the attributes, it has to be water? If you're not a water type, how are you supposed to answer this? Another one chimed in. Is he trying to make things difficult for us? Just sitting and listening, Beck Eon felt a bit tired and let out a yawn. So boring. He thought with frustration, why are these classes so damn difficult? However, his unconscious action caught the professor's owl-like gaze. Meeting those eyes, he flinched. And of course, he was targeted. Kalim cleared his throat and invited Beck Eon to come up and solve this problem. Beck Eon stood up and gave a forced smile. Yes, sir. Inwardly, he was screaming, Damn it, I got caught! A moment later, he had finished. The chalk in his hand stopped. He turned and said to the professor, I'm done, sir. Looking at the detailed and flawless solution, the professor was stunned, his eyes wide and jaw agape. Kalim examined it carefully while saying to him, Excellent. To see the solution so easily and solve this problem in such a short amount of time. Then the old man approached and asked about his magical attribute. Is your primary attribute water? Beck Eon smiled until his eyes crinkled, waving his hand in denial. No, sir. Then the professor let him return to his seat. Good. We will continue the lesson next period. Iso silently observed, her lips pursed. Before long, the class came to an end. Everyone began to leave the room. Just as he was about to leave, a familiar voice called out, "Excuse me!" He turned around. "Huh?" He saw her staring at him, clutching a book in her arms. He was confused. She just stood there, wide-eyed, staring for a moment before speaking. "I have something I want to ask you." Beck Eon turned back around. Seeing it was her, he was stunned for a moment, his lips pressed together. A second later, he opened his mouth to ask, "What is it?" Iso didn't say anything, just observed him from head to toe with wide eyes. In her mind, she was considering many things. While watching Beck Eon, I've become certain of one thing. Disregarding his scores, he is definitely intelligent, perhaps even comparable to the very best. She recalled the sight of him effortlessly solving a difficult problem, then casually saying one sentence. "I'm done, sir." At that moment, Iso had to widen her eyes to watch, but she still couldn't believe it. No way. Not with a problem that difficult on the board. He's at least an undergraduate, not a professor. She sat below, watching him converse with the professor, thinking to herself, even though they say Stella is a gathering place for geniuses. But what is Big Bang Kusan's true identity, after all? Looking at his unremarkable appearance and average grades, Iso, of course, didn't think highly of him. At first, I thought it was impossible. But now, I'm sure of it. He must have a strategy for registering for classes. If that's the case. She frowned, an impatient look on her face, and started to ask him, "What's your next class?" But Iso had another plan in mind. "I have to get that information." Hearing her sudden question, Beck Eon's eyes widened in surprise. After a moment, he asked back, flustered, "Why do you ask? Do you like me or something?" Iso, annoyed, immediately shot back, "What? That's so creepy." He then added, "I'm the one who thinks it's creepy, you know." Feeling that what he'd just said was a bit childish, he told himself, "I'm an adult now. What am I even doing?" Beck Eon rubbed his neck and closed his eyes, his brow furrowing slightly. "Anyway, why are you asking?" She bluntly stated what she'd figured out. "I've researched some of the classes you're taking, and it seems they're all courses where it's easy to get high scores." Hearing that, he froze. Iso, without a hint of hesitation, laid it all out. "So I'll get straight to the point. Where did you learn that strategy, huh?" "Because it's really important to me." As she finished speaking, Beck Eon thought in a panic, "Ha! I was wondering what on earth she was going to ask." Eon simply waved his hand and replied with a forced laugh, "Ha ha. What do you mean? Learned it? It's probably just a coincidence." Seeing things were getting awkward, Beck Eon quickly looked for an excuse to leave. He turned toward the door. Before leaving, he said, "If that's all, I'm going." Watching him leave, her eyes widened in shock. "What?" Iso frantically called after him, "Wait!" But he kept walking without stopping. Stunned, her lips parted with an "ah" before she pressed them tightly together. She resolved to follow him, calling out loudly, "Please, wait a second." Hearing this, Beck Eon's eyes widened in surprise. He turned back to look at her. Iso awkwardly approached, stammering, "Wait, a moment." Seeing her following him, he responded, confused, "What the hell? Why are you following me? Go learn that stuff from someone else. There are plenty of smart people here." Then he added, "Or just copy what I'm doing." "You said you've already researched it, right?" Iso was panting tiredly, but meeting his blank gaze, she awkwardly summoned her courage to explain. "Anyone who takes the Sacred Moon course gets an A+, so if I take it too, it's not a problem. But if I sign up for the other classes you're taking, it'll negatively affect your scores." She stood there, her gaze anxious and hopeful, waiting for his answer. Beck Eon felt a pang of pity. If she doesn't get the scholarship, she's the one who'll suffer the most. But even in that situation, she's still worried about someone else's grades. Even though it's a bit of a hassle, it seems the main character is still the main character. Thinking this, he silently observed her. Just then, Iso looked up at him, putting on a cute face, blinking her eyes, asking for help. "Anyway, could you suggest a class for me? Just one? A class where it's easy to get a high grade?" He replied coldly, "You think that expression is going to work on me?" Instantly, she touched her face, trying to look even more fragile to win him over. "It's not working? That's strange. Every time I look at this face, all my worries just melt away." Watching her strange expression, Beck Eon just felt a sense of gloom. He asked blankly, "Are you being serious?" But she wasn't done teasing him. Isol's eyes crinkled as she giggled happily. "I'm just kidding. I knew you'd react like this. So I've prepared some compensation for you. Hearing this, he said in surprise, Compensation? Her words reminded him of when Hong Bijin had proposed something similar. His mouth fell open as he thought helplessly, why are these people so obsessed with offering compensation? Where do they even learn this flashy stuff? Next, Isol asked, do you know anything about the ghost story of the Seventh Tower? Her question made him pause. Beck Eon's eyes widened as he looked at her suspiciously. Yeah. Then, facing her directly, he stated flatly, I know about it. Hearing his answer, she beamed. Really? Very few people know about that. Regaining her composure, she casually revealed what she knew. It was an abandoned tower that vanished, but now there are a ton of barriers preventing anyone from getting near the spot where it used to be. But that place... Before she could finish her sentence, Beck Eon cut her off. Wait. His interruption confused her, and she glanced over at him. Ah. He looked tired. She asked with concern, is everything okay? Listening to her drone on, he closed his eyes and put a hand to his forehead, groaning internally. I'm going to lose my mind. To him, this was now a huge deal. Beck Eon couldn't help but feel bewildered, because with this, Flame could increase its influence over the main protagonist. Through the text of the novel, so if Flame knows, that means, in the original novel, Aishu knows there's a chance she and the male lead will meet in a romantic setting, and Aishu is only supposed to give this information to the male lead, definitely not to a side character like me. Beck Eon turned around leisurely. As he walked, he said to her, that's a scary story, isn't it? I don't want to hear it. It's not interesting at all. Aishu watched him, wide-eyed and dazed. And so, the two of them walked down the hall, chatting back and forth. He spoke up, saying, it's not that scary, you know. Are you afraid of ghosts at your age? It's fine, I'll still tell you, free of charge. She trailed behind him. Aishu grew wary and probed, you're acting like you weren't planning on telling me. Did you change your mind? Beck Eon replied, sounding a bit helpless. Yeah, I changed my mind. He thought for a moment. Besides, Aishu's face was full of anticipation for Beck Eon's answer. He thought to himself, just seeing Aishu this earnest is enough for me. Beck Eon spoke up. By the way, he offered her some advice. This isn't related to your grades, but it'll be extremely useful to you. Your liberal arts registration is for the meditative journey into the abyss class. Aishu recalled, a bit confused, asking, meditation? You're taking that for your liberal arts credit? Lunar saint studies and meditation. Are you planning on becoming a farmer or something? Beck Eon immediately refuted her. Not at all. He raised a hand to scratch the tip of his nose, wondering how to explain it. He told Aishu, my master is a bishop, just like yours. Through meditation, she's able to increase her magical power. Just by meditating? Aishu asked, completely surprised. Yep, he confirmed. Beck Eon thought to himself. In reality, no one knows this yet. But for bishops who possess immense destructive power, meditation is paramount. The image of a bishop, holding an almighty scepter, appeared, followed by a scene of them meditating. Beck Eon was certain of it, thanks to the precision of formulas and calculations. But in the end, it all comes from the mind, the place where mana originates. He turned to explain more to Aishu. I don't tell this to many people, but since you're cute, I'll make an exception. You just said I was ugly, she replied helplessly. Aishu's face broke into a gentle smile. Well, thank you anyway. It's a shame it's not a course that can improve my grades, but I'll still register for it. Seeing that she'd taken his advice to heart, Beck Eon just said, suit yourself. Having gotten what she wanted, Aishu left with a bright smile. Beck Eon watched her leave, lost in thought. He let out a long sigh. I actually told her. I'm a little scared to think about how this will change the future. A bloody scene flashed through his mind. But if this only helps her escape her fear, Aishu is still fated to die a tragic death in this life. It would be great if meditation could help her. Beck Eon prayed silently. Suddenly, he remembered something. He looked down at his hands, a bewildered expression on his face. Wait a second. Now that I think about it, I'm a mage too, aren't I? Why didn't I think about training until now? He remembered the old game. In the game, Beck Eon trained relentlessly. Awakening his apocalypse magic affected his physique, causing him to grow at a terrifying rate. As he walked down the stairs, Beck Eon was lost in his own thoughts. In the game, I could gain experience just by pushing a button. Now I have to do it myself. In any case, it's been pretty peaceful lately. There haven't been any trials or monster hunts, so I can't gain any more experience. Beck Eon suddenly smiled, gently. I should be grateful to Aishu. He looked around the room and thought. This dorm room is huge. He remembered that at Stella, all students live in the dorms. He recalled that the dorm system was a minor piece of side content where players could decorate their rooms for fun. But for Beck Eon, this was essentially his only home, since his village had been burned to the ground. He walked around the room. The dorms were divided based on the students' classes. The rooms were all the same size, but the number of occupants per room was arranged according to class. Of course, S-class students get the top floor, Beck Eon thought. I feel a bit lonely, but I'm lucky to have a place to stay at all. He sighed wearily and settled into a meditative state. Time to begin, Usan thought to himself. Beck Eon closed his eyes, contemplating. Stats aren't the most important thing. Since this is reality, I need to get used to this body. He recalled that in the game, Beck Eon was a genius who could manifest a sword's aura by taking advantage of the infinite circulation of mana both inside and outside his body. Recalling the game's plot, no one had paid attention to him, so nobody knew. The story flashed in Usan's mind. But Beck Eon is a master swordsman of rare talent. The only person in the world to reach the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Usan sat down and meditated seriously. A stream of golden mana enveloped his body. I need to walk that path again. Beck Eon felt the mana flowing through him. My breathing controls the flow of mana throughout my body. If I can gradually increase the amount of mana with each breath, then I should be able to gather enough mana soon. After a moment of meditation, the mana flowing through Usan's body began to spread into the surrounding air. Skills don't level up just by gathering experience. You have to constantly use them to level them up. That means all I have to do is train. The clock on the wall ticked softly, its hands pointing to 4 as the sun gradually began to rise. The flow of mana surrounding Usan was faint and ethereal. When Usan came to, he was surprised to see it. Looking closely at the mana around him, he thought to himself, this must be the feeling that Beck Eon had. He focused on the flow. As someone who's had mana leak syndrome since I was young, it's very faint, but I can feel it. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. Skill, mana leak syndrome has leveled up. Skill, blink has leveled up. He shouted with joy, his voice echoing throughout the small room. All right! Beck Eon clenched his fist, thinking with satisfaction, I'm one step closer to my goal. His face was filled with satisfaction, his eyes flashing with determination. I will definitely find the right ending. The scene changes to a place with a lush green field of grass. All the first-year students of the academy moved one by one to the assembly point, which was a vast expanse of green grass. Flame gently felt each soft breeze. It carried the scent of fresh grass blowing against her. She thought to herself, the grass field and the wind are probably created by magic, but they feel so real. In the game, Stella Dormitory was a pocket dimension created on the academy grounds. According to the game's settings, it allows for the adjustment of the size and characteristics of this place. All sporting events and other events, such as dungeons, gates, and monster training, were held here. The students were all gathered in one place, not in neat rows, but not in a chaotic crowd either. Her eyes swept over everyone present. Flame stood at the back of the group. She did a quick calculation. A total of 141 people. She recalled the novel's plot. 50 students in Class A1 and A2, 41 students in Class S, if it's the same as the novel. Then Class S should only have 39 students. Flame silently considered this. Including me, that makes 40. But one more person was added. And Flame immediately wondered, where did Beck Eon come from? She slowly recalled the contents of the original script. In the novel, there were a total of 1,140 first-year students. Adding me makes it 1,141. In other words, Beck Eon was also in the novel. Flame tried to calm down, but worry was evident on her delicate face. I'll figure it out eventually. It's okay. I can do this. She clenched her fists, trying her best to reassure herself. After all, I'm the only one in this world who knows about the novel. Flame started to walk, following the other students. The class was about to begin. Suddenly, a voice caught her attention. Young Master Jeremy, have you finished registering for your courses yet? Jeremy replied with a bright smile, Of course I'm done. The other person continued, We registered for soft magic research because we heard that you signed up for that class too. Hearing this, he flashed a brilliant smile in return, sparkling as if favored by the sunlight. "Is that so?" he chirped. "Let's help each other out then." Flame heard the entire conversation. With an expressionless face, she glanced at the sycophantic crowd. She recalled who he was, Prince Jeremy. Jeremy appeared with blonde hair and was known for smiling a lot. The plot revolving around the prince in the novel was that he was infatuated with the idol, but she rejected him. In the end, he became a villain. Flame assessed the situation. He seems kind enough, but his every action is calculated. I should be careful and stay away from him. Jeremy glanced over and noticed Flame standing to the side, looking in their direction. He immediately smiled and raised his hand to greet her. Flame greeted him back. Inside, she thought, he's obviously very handsome. I understand why so many people fawn over him. Her suspicion for the man in front of her didn't lessen one bit. Prince Jeremy is definitely the most suspicious person in this academy. Flame turned and walked away. In her mind, she continued to focus on her own situation. I need to concentrate because this world is my reality now. I have to prepare for the future. Jeremy watched her retreating figure and smiled to himself. He remembered this person's name. If I'm not mistaken, her name is Flame. After all the students had gathered, the professor for the course stepped in front of them. He spoke softly. "Everyone, attention." The professor stood formally and began to explain. "We will begin with a simple training exercise. Before we start the lessons, I need to know your skill levels so I can teach you accordingly. I will be your direct instructor. If you don't like that, well, you'll just have to deal with it." The professor's face was stern as he glanced at them. Before starting the class, he made a point to remind the students so they wouldn't do anything reckless. "As you all know, we professors have the authority to increase or decrease your scores. Remember that you will be expelled if you fall below a certain threshold." After finishing his reminder, he went on to explain what would happen next. "Now, I will explain the training in more detail." The professor held his hand out in front of him and explained slowly, "We will be conducting a simulated dungeon training test. I will use effects as well as traps and monsters that appear in a real dungeon to test you. The rules of the dungeon are as follows. You will receive 4 points for a danger level 1 monster, 8 points for a danger level 2 monster," he said while taking out a staff, "and 20 points if you manage to retrieve the score staff." The staff vanished as soon as he finished explaining the scoring. The top 5 students will receive a small reward and priority shopping privileges. Any student with 0 points will have their overall score reduced. Flame listened intently. "If you are afraid of failing or going it alone, you may form a team. But remember, the score will be divided equally among all team members." A moment after he finished his explanation, he vanished. But before he left, he didn't forget to leave them with one last sentence. "If you successfully defeat another student, you will acquire their score. Well then, good luck." Just then, the ground began to shake violently. Seeing this, the panicking student stammered, What is—" when a loud scream suddenly drew everyone's attention. The ground was— and then, one after another, monstrous shrieks echoed from below. Giant vines burst from the earth beneath their feet. Fo Len, realizing what was happening, thought to himself, "This is—" Massive intertwined tree branches appeared. The map of Jack and the Beanstalk materialized in its entirety. Countless large trees were tangled and woven together, creating a truly majestic scene. All the students stood frozen in place. The sudden change made everyone too afraid to act rashly. Flame stood perfectly still, even as the others had already split up to find teammates. Her initial surprise at the dungeon's transformation was gone. No longer clutching her weapon tightly, she quietly made up her mind. "All right, I'm going too." Suddenly, someone called her name from behind. "Flame!" The person who called her was Jackie. "Are you planning on going alone?" Jackie asked with a smile. Behind her, a few others were waving at Flame. Flame said quietly, "Ah." She looked at Jackie, mentally weighing the pros and cons of going solo versus teaming up. Although teaming up had many advantages, going alone would earn her more points. Having made her decision, Flame spoke up to decline. "Sorry, I want to try going alone this time." Jackie's eyes narrowed into a bright smile as she replied softly, her tone carrying a slightly unusual edge. "Ah, I get it. If we teamed up, you'd have to share points with your teammates, right?" she said. That's right. Flame replied to this blatant sarcasm. Flame could only think to herself, "It really sounds like she's mocking me." Before turning to leave, Flame added one more sentence to keep the peace between them. "Let's go together next time, okay?" Jackie turned back and replied, "Sure." Flame didn't leave right away, but paused for a moment to watch Jackie's back as she walked towards her group of friends. Seeing the way they talked, Flame couldn't help but overthink things. "Am I thinking too much about this? I just get the feeling she's copying me." Jackie said to her friends, "Flame's going alone." Her friend replied, "Whatever, her loss." She didn't pay too much attention to it. Flame turned away, telling herself, "Well, I'm sure this will stop eventually." Time flew by. 1 hour later, on the ground, a small green monster was defeated, its whole body exploding. And Flame, after a long period of continuous fighting, was also exhausted. "Phew, I'm so tired." Around her now were the corpses of low-level monsters. She wondered, when is this training session going to end? It was as if she sensed something was wrong. Flame quietly uttered, Right after that, a tree with many large branches shot out to attack her. Flame reacted quickly, using magic to block the blow. After the attack, the tree branches scattered around her. They quickly returned to their original positions under the ground. Flame looked around, thinking, it's not just monsters. The plants are attacking too? A look of surprise was clear on her face. This is Stella, after all. Even their practical dungeon training is on another level. She mentally recalculated her points after an hour of monster slaying. Right now I've collected 18 points. Not bad, but at this rate, someone else could catch up to me with just one good score. Flame quickly left the spot where she was standing. As she walked, she thought, I have to keep moving. Suddenly, Flame noticed something in the far distance. There was a hazy, blurry silhouette. The figure stood against the sun, making it very hard to see, only vaguely recognizable. She was startled and let out a soft cry. Over there! The figure appeared indistinct. This made Flame wonder, is it a monster? Looking more carefully, Flame thought, no, it's a person. But how can a student have such incredible stealth skills? Flame bit her lip, thinking. It doesn't matter. I can also hide using nature's fusion. She ducked behind a large tree trunk, carefully recalling the skill. Using Flame's specialties like bind, destruction, defense, and healing, ambushing the opponent was the most suitable option. From her hiding spot, Flame carefully observed the person ahead. Suddenly, Flame let out a surprised, huh? She couldn't believe her eyes. Her astonishment was written all over her face. It's Beck Eon! Beck Eon was looking around, assessing the situation. Seeing no one else with him, Flame guessed, is he going alone too? Flame recalled what she had accidentally overheard from other students. I heard that many people wanted to form a team with Beck Eon, but he turned them all down. I wonder what this guy is up to. Flame suddenly noticed something, unable to hide the surprise in her eyes. The thing Eon is holding. The point stick. He already got it? Flame thought for a moment and then decided. This is the perfect opportunity. She glanced over at where Eon was standing. Let me test him. Flame performed a spell, Aura, and immediately the weapon in her hand began to glow. She calculated, from my position to his is about 15 meters. At that distance, there's no way he can defend in time. A dazzling magic appeared around her, and Flame's gaze became much more serious. She held her weapon out in front of her and, without hesitation, cast the spell Light Bullet. The bullet, glowing with a brilliant yellow light, shot towards Eon. Sensing the danger, Eon immediately looked over. Right after, Eon risked using the skill Blink. 1 second before the light bullet could hit where he stood, Eon vanished into thin air. Flame couldn't believe her eyes. She exclaimed in utter amazement, What the? She stood there, staring at the spot where Eon had just been. The ground where the spell impacted was scorched black, and a cloud of smoke and dust billowed out, completely obscuring any sign of Eon. Flame gripped her weapon tightly, her face full of questions. How? She bewilderedly asked herself. He dodged a Tier 2 spell from that distance? The scene shifts to Eun's perspective. At that moment, with a blink, Eon instantly disappeared and then reappeared in another location. From where he now stood, Eon could see Flame. He thought with complete exasperation, Geez, is she trying to kill me or something? Why would she just fire a light bullet like that? Thank goodness my monoleak syndrome has leveled up or I would have been toast. A notification panel appeared. Blink. Maximum distance, 12. Level 1. Maximum stacks, 2. Cooldown, 3 seconds. He looked at it and considered, I only have 2 more blinks left. I could probably take him if I used the terrain to my advantage, but it's better to just avoid him. Then, Yusan continuously used his skill. Flash, flash. When he finally stopped at a spot he considered safe enough, Yusan thought calmly to himself, this far should be fine. My goal is 5th place. There's no need to take any risks. He recalled the reward. The prize for 5th place is said to increase stamina and strength several times over. Yusan thought to himself as he walked casually. Besides, the top 4 spots will go to the main characters anyway. At this point, they only need 3 more score sticks. A voice suddenly rang out, filled with an unusual and challenging tone. Well, well, look who it is! A group of people was blocking the path he intended to take. The other guy continued his taunts. Beck Eon, from the S-class. In his head, Yusan thought, that guy. The group stood opposite Yusan, separated by the roots of a massive tree. So this is Beck Eon from S-class, and in his head he thought, this guy. He looked at the arrogant figure before him, trying to recall, it's Raiden. He's gotten pretty famous around school lately. Yusan figured he must be with that trash-us Lex, one of Jeremy's bootlickers, one after another. Yusan glanced over, silently assessing the situation. But then his eyes fell on what was in Raiden's hand, and he thought in surprise, he has 3 score sticks already? Yusan thought for a moment before coming to a conclusion. He must have gotten that many thanks to his little henchman. One of the minions whispered to Raiden, Hey, I heard he's just some weakling who cheated his way into S-class. Raiden immediately let out a smug, contemptuous laugh, taunting him. Got into S-class? For answering 3 stupid questions? Stella must be really going downhill. He made his disdain obvious. Such a boring cliché. So uncreative. Raiden called out to him, Hey, Beck Eon! He continued to provoke him. Since we're already here, just hand over your score stick. Yusan replied, his voice tinged with mockery. Not interested. Raiden sneered. Huh? Putting up a fight? He scoffed. You think, Raiden provoked, completely underestimating Yusan because of his numbers. You can actually fight all of us? What, are you going to use that divine high school staff of yours? He scoffed. You can't even use magic, let alone a magic staff. Yusan remained unafraid, calmly thinking of a way to deal with the people in front of him. What should I do now? Beck Eon analyzed the situation. With my low-level flash, I can't go head-to-head with someone from a major family like Raiden. If I had 3 flashes? Suddenly an idea struck him. There is still one way. The strategy Yusan came up with involved the score stick in his hand. A plan began to form in his mind, and the terrain of this dungeon. He held up the score stick and said in a perfectly calm voice, Here. Raiden smirked, his voice full of arrogance. Now that's more like it. Seeing that the fish had taken the bait, Yusan let out a smirk. In the next instant, before Raiden could even get a clear look, Yusan dashed forward, appearing right in front of him. For a second, Raiden couldn't react, only managing to let out a grunt. Beck Eon gave him a dangerous smile. Very quickly, Raiden grasped the situation, and without delay, he quickly activated his protective barrier. He managed to block Yusan's surprise attack just in time. Watching the protective barrier crack into pieces from just one of Yusan's blows, Raiden gritted his teeth, refusing to accept it. Damn it! He ground his teeth furiously, thinking, this low-life commoner! Raiden shoved his arm out forcefully, trying to use the momentum of the move to create distance from Yusan. He screamed in fury, You son of a bitch, I'll... Before he could finish his sentence, the sight before him left Raiden stunned. There was no one there. He wondered blankly, where did he go? Yusan's sarcastic voice echoed from behind him. Oh dear. As Raiden stood there bewildered, he added a nonchalant, offhand comment. That was dangerous. Yusan held up the 2 score sticks in his hands. His face held an extremely taunting expression as he glanced at the group before him. Thanks. Raiden screamed. You bastard, give them back! He replied, not interested. Yusan looked at the prize in his hands with delight. The score sticks worked perfectly. He remembered something he had learned by chance while gaming. Information about the score sticks appeared on the system panel, but these score sticks are actually bugged items. Their unusual durability keeps them from being destroyed by student-level magic. They hold the power of most magical tools. Yusan calculated silently in his head. Although they're more useful for magic users, for a physical attacker like me, A weapon with strong offensive power can be utilized 100%. Having seen his strength firsthand during their clash, Raiden knew he couldn't just rush in recklessly. He looked at Yusan with apprehension. Fine. That bastard dared to steal my points! He turned angrily to vent on his lackeys, his voice rising several octaves. What are you all standing there for? Go get him! Suddenly, the dungeon began to transform. The entire ground trembled violently, and the massive trees began to move. Raiden looked around in a panic, trying to assess the situation. He thought worriedly to himself, damn it, what's wrong with the dungeon? Raiden quickly ordered his minions, everyone gather around, prepare your magic and don't let that guy out of your sight. As if he'd been waiting for the dungeon to shift, Yusan used their moment of panic to circle around behind them. Now! Moving nimbly, he took advantage of the terrain and his own skills, and quickly fled the area. One of Vaiden's henchmen spotted him and shouted, Beck Eon is getting away! Immediately, they aimed their weapons at him, firing off blasts of energy. As they whizzed past, one of them yelled, Where do you think you're going, you bastard? By the time Yusan turned to look back, the magic attacks were almost on him. Yusan mused, These guys are better than I thought. But with a whoosh, he vanished right in the middle of the stormy barrage of attacks. Seeing this, the men couldn't contain their anger and yelled, Damn it, he flashed again! Golden afterimages from the skill were left behind. Yusan left them scattered all around the group. They stared at each other, wide-eyed, wondering, where did he go? Too fast! We can't find him! As Yusan moved quickly, he thought to himself, with my years of PvP experience, using the terrain to my advantage is a piece of cake. Raiden grew more and more agitated. Both angry and bewildered, he yelled, Damn it, I just need to hit one of them! A henchman reported to him, his voice filled with panic. Raiden, the dungeon is... He turned and snapped at his men. Calm down. That guy is still around here. Wait until the dungeon stabilizes, then attack if you see him. Raiden's eyes darted around, assessing the situation. He didn't forget to add, If we fail, the magic will backlash. Be careful. Before he could finish his sentence, Yusan suddenly appeared out of nowhere in front of Raiden, like a dangerous monster. The skill Yusan unleashed shattered his protective barrier in a single blow. Raiden stumbled backward from the force, accidentally bumping into a henchman who was casting a spell. The man cried out, Ak! As magic like small whirlwinds began to leak out. It swirled around his weapon. Realizing what was happening, the man screamed in terror, We're screwed! The magic backlashed. The spells prepared for Yusan were turned against their casters as bolts of lightning rained down on them. The whole group clutched their heads, screaming, Ga-ar! Having finished his work, Beck Eon turned and moved away. He stood on a nearby mound of earth, looking down at Raiden's group sprawled on the ground. He thought to himself, It's over. A soft humming sound was emitted. Ugh! Raiden looked around angrily, his whole body now filthy and injured, looking utterly pathetic. He cried out, Damn it, Beck Eon! From his high vantage point, Yusan's voice echoed down to them, I'll be taking these, thanks. In his hand were 3 score bars, the loot Yusan had claimed from Raiden.